Chapter 207. The Chun brothers nodded their heads and could hear the meaning of Shun Miao's words to chase them away, so they did not hesitate and stood up. Chun Yushan said, after finding younger sister, Shun young lady has done our Chun family a favor, and in the future if there is any need for the Chun family will naturally not decline. Many thanks for the matter this time. Finishing, he carried his sword and left in a hurry, most likely to search for the whereabouts of the Chun family's younger sister. Ji Yushu stared at Shun Miao. He thought that Shun Miao's performance that day was sufficiently unique, but did not expect that today she was still so surprising. The people of the pugilistic world were all arrogant and the Chun family was considered a large family. Moreover, this was originally a transaction of money and goods, but with just a few words from Shun Miao, she became the Chun family's benefactor? The Chun brothers' attitude towards Shun Miao was also very polite. Just like what the brothers said. In the future if Shun Miao had any difficulties, there would be the Chun family's help. It was not an easy matter to climb up to the Chun family. Manager Ji, now we can talk about the transaction between you and me? Shun Miao looked at him. I have already thought about the conditions of that day. Ji Yushu pretended to touch his chin and put on a difficult look. Actually, this information of yours is too dangerous. If it is done successfully, then naturally everyone will be happy, but if one day it is discovered, my Fengxian pawn shop will not be able to open anymore and I, the shopkeeper, will also lose my head. As for all the servants, they will also lose their lives. So for this transaction what you have to compensate is the Shun family and money, but what I have to compensate is a real life. Speaking of which, it is still my loss. Shun Miao glanced at him lightly and said, as such, the business cannot be done. I understand. Sorry for disturbing Manager Ji for so long. Farewell. Ji Yushu had not finished his planned words when he saw Shun Miao's face suddenly change and was about to leave. He was so scared that he did not want to pretend anymore and quickly said, Hey, I have not finished speaking. Why are the young ladies now so impatient? Shin young lady, even though I feel that this is very dangerous, but the first time I saw you, I felt that you and I are very fated. For a beautiful young lady like you, one think that there would be no reason for males to not agree to any request. I am a person who cannot bear to see a beauty wronged. If I do not do this business, one think that you will not be happy. In order to make you happy, I don't mind sacrificing my life. So I'll do this business. In the secret chamber at the other end, after hearing Ji Yushu's mushy words, Gao Yang could not help but look at Xie Jingxing. Is he alright? He even dared to provoke such a vicious woman? This isn't Miss Peony. This is Miss Cannibal Flower. Xie Jingxing's lips twitched. Reckless. After listening to Ji Yushu's words, Shun Miao said calmly under Ji Yushu's ardent and passionate eyes, since that is the case, then tell Manager Ji about my plan. Ji Yushu immediately sat upright. Alright. Shun young lady, please speak. Now the people of Mingqi know that 10 years ago when His Majesty was attacked by an assassin, Prince Yu of the first rank sacrificed himself to save His Majesty from the assassin's hands and broke one of his legs. The assassin escaped. Not bad. Shun Miao smiled gently. The news that I want you to spread is very simple. That is that recently Prince Yu of the first rank executed a personal guard by his side. That personal guard coincidentally, other than being slightly older, he looked exactly the same as the assassin 10 years ago. This? Ji Yushu was stunned for a moment before suddenly pausing and the teacup in his hands almost fell over. Manager Ji must definitely pass this news to the Emperor. Shun Miao smiled gently. Is this true? Ji Yushu asked tentatively. Real or fake? Manager Ji can think of ways to make it true. Shun Miao smiled. Chapter 208. Ji Yushu stared at Shun Miao and was unable to speak for a long time. He felt that this young lady who looked much younger than him was really a monster. The transaction is done, so I should leave. Shun Miao stood up. Manager Ji's actions must be faster. At least it must be done before the extermination of the entire prince of first-rank residents. After she finished speaking, she no longer looked at Ji Yushu and turned to leave. Hong Ling had been waiting outside for a long time and seeing her come out, she knew that the deal was done and let her out again. In the secret chamber, Gao Yang was silent for a while before saying, I do not think that it is a good thing that the Shun family is so powerful. Now that there is more porridge than monks, I think that the Shun family cannot stay for long. It is up to me to decide whether to stay or not. Xie Jingxing lazily said. It is not bad to borrow the Shen family's hands to deal with that old dog Prince Yu. Perhaps one day the Shen family will deal with you like this. If they dare to, I do not mind to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Xie Jingxing's beautiful black eyes lit up. There is still no whereabouts of the thing? Gao Yang shook his head. On the day of the extermination, I will personally make a trip. Xie Jingxing sat up straight and played with the jade cup in his hands. I do not believe that it can still fly. You really think that the entire Prince Yu residence can be exterminated? Shen Miao's plan is good, but when it comes to doing things there will always be accidents. Accidents? Xie Jingxing chuckled and his half-closed peach blossom eyes were as intoxicating as wine but under the long eyelashes. His eyes were as sharp as a knife, like a cat catching a mouse. Ever since I met her, she has never had any accidents. Time always passed especially fast. The general residence was a very strange residence. Before anything happened, everything was naturally covered up and everyone was happy. From the relationship between the first few households, at least from the outside, it looked good. Until a big fire burned down the Shen family's ancestral hall and burned away the trust that Shen Xian and wife had for the second and third household. The relationship of the first household was at least stiff. Now that Shan Qing had lost her innocence and was going to marry Prince Yu of first rank, any sensible person would know that this was not a good thing. However, Chan Ruoqiu and Shan Yu were still happily busy preparing for Shan Qing's marriage. Even though it was a marriage bestowed by the imperial family, it was not worthwhile to put on such a happy attitude for one's own family. If one looked at it this way, it would seem too cold. Ran Wanyun quarreled with Shen Gui because of Shen Qing, and old Shen Foreign favored Shen Gui and was dissatisfied with her as a daughter-in-law, and did not say that she would return the power to manage the household to Ran Wanyun. Since Chan Ruoqiu was valued by old Foreign, naturally she became more attentive. Ran Wanyun was furious in her heart, and could not help but show her resentment towards old Shen Foreign. Old Shen Foreign was even more ruthless and directly kept Shen Yuanbo and Rong Jingtang, not letting Ran Wanyun see him. At this point, Ran Wanyun had become a solitary person in the huge Shen residence. Even her former servants, some of them had secretly thrown their lot in with Wan Yinyang, who was currently in the limelight. In Kai Yun Yuan, Ran Wanyun was either cursing loudly or hugging Shan Qing and crying bitterly, looking somewhat crazy. None of this had anything to do with the West Garden. Shen Xian and wife consciously kept a distance from the second and third household, and their attitude was neither hot nor cold. Through this matter, they most likely saw the second and third household's cold-hearted nature. At least from Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan's point of view. If everything that happened to Shen Qing were to fall on Shen Miao, both of them would not swallow the insult and would fight for justice for Shen Miao even if they had to risk their lives. In addition, Shen Miao was much more sensible now, and her attitude towards them was not as distant as before, making them feel that it was worth it to ask Emperor Wen Hui for the grace of staying in the Ding capital. In the room, Bai Lu said, "Eldest young master just picked a few precious jewelry for young lady and also gave young lady a few banknotes. This servant has placed them in the box for young lady." Chapter 209. Shen Miao nodded her head. Ever since Shan Qiu knew that she went to the Fengxian pawnshop, he thought that she was short of money to spend and would pick some exquisite things from the palace to send over or directly send money over. He even said to her younger sister, "If you do not have money, then tell older brother and older brother will give it to you. Do not go to any pawn shop. I am Shan Qiu's younger sister. Why would she need to go to a pawn shop to exchange for money?" Shen Miao was too lazy to explain to him, and adding on to the fact that money was not a hot thing, so she gladly accepted it. It had been 2 days since she met with the Chan brothers, and tomorrow she would make another trip to the Fengxian pawn shop. She did not know if Chan Yushan and Chan Yuhai had inquired about the whereabouts of the younger sister of the Shen family. The life of the Shen sisters was undoubtedly very pitiful. And when she learned of this news, it was in the past lifetime. She married Fu Xiuyi, and when Fu Xiuyi just ascended the throne, he was very impatient with Prince Yu. Fu Xiuyi was after all not Emperor Wen Hui, and Prince Yu did not save his life. As an emperor who had just ascended the throne, it was not something to be happy about to have a royal uncle who would only find trouble for himself. Jiangnanzhou province's Chun family finally learned of the Chun sisters' bitter experience 3 years later, And at that time they also assassinated Prince Yu. These two brothers were rather hot-blooded and directly crippled Prince Yu's other leg, but it was a pity that Prince Yu was able to keep his life. Prince Yu was furious and wanted to trace who it was, so he threw this difficult problem to Fu Xiuyi. To investigate clearly the assassin, it was extremely difficult, but Fu Xiuyi's advisors were all over the world, and among them were people from the pugilistic world. Someone told Fu Xiuyi about the Fengxian pawnshop's private business. Fu Xiuyi himself did not come forward and sent people to spend a lot of money to buy the news of the assassin who assassinated Prince Yu. It was strange to say that the Fengxian pawnshop accepted this business, but it was not successful and said that they did not receive any news. The Fengxian pawnshop did not receive it, but Fu Xiuyi himself found it out. Thus the Jiangnan's Chun family indeed ushered in a disaster. In this lifetime, Shen Miao had long thought of this matter, and when Prince Yu had other thoughts about her and started the transaction with Ran Wanyun, she had already laid out such a trap. Everything was moving according to her chessboard. Shen Qing being humiliated, Ran Wanyun's counterattack, and even Shan Qing's accidental pregnancy were all in her plan. Naturally, at the returning banquet, pregnancy was involved and Shan Qing wanted to marry Prince Yu, making Prince Yu furious. Prince Yu of the first rank would put all his energy on her. Thus the Chun family could take this opportunity to secretly plan. As for the royal family, it was even easier. In fact, Shen Miao always had a guess that with the Fengxian pawnshop's ability, it was possible that in the past life they did not find out that it was the Chun family who assassinated Prince Yu, but Fu Xiuyi's people did not reply to any news. Perhaps it was deliberately done by the Fengxian pawnshop. Could it be that the Fengxian pawnshop had some discord with Prince Yu? So previously in the loft of the Immortal River, Shen Miao deliberately probed Ji Yushu and said the words "exterminate the entire family." Ji Yushu's expression was stunned but was not carefree. Obviously there was no grudge between Ji Yushu and Prince Yu residents. However, the intuition of someone who had died once was terrifyingly accurate. Ji Yushu's reaction not only did not dispel Shen Miao's guesses, but also made her have another suspicion in her heart. If that was the case, everything could be explained. Perhaps the master behind the Fengxian pawnshop was not Ji Yushu. Who was the person behind it? Shen Miao could not think of it. She thought that she was an empress in the past lifetime and had followed by Fu Xiuyi's side. So all these big and small secrets were all grasped in her hands. But now it seemed that the depth of the water was much more dangerous than she imagined. But no matter what, Prince Yu residence's doors must be exterminated and Prince Yu's life must be taken. As for Shen Qing, naturally she should live a life worse than death. In the past lifetime, Shen Qing had seen her in prison, so in this lifetime she wanted to return the favor. Shuangjiang carried the flower pot as she walked in and smiled. Yesterday the sun was very strong, so this servant took the flower pot out to bask in the sun. Young lady said that it would snow these few days, and this servant did not believe it, and wanted this servant to use an umbrella to cover it. Who knew that it would snow early in the morning today? Luckily it was young lady's preparation. Otherwise these few pots of flowers would be miserable and this servant would have caused trouble. Speaking of which, young lady seems to like to make these preparations. Bai Lu smiled. To prepare things early and think of the possibility of something going wrong early. Every time when it comes to the critical moment, we would be able to pass it easily. Young lady's temperament is very steady and very good. Shen Miao smiled gently and her bright eyes reflected the scenery outside, as firm as a rock. She said, "It is nothing. I just do not like accidents." Chapter 210. A day's plan always passed very quickly. On the third day when Shen Miao came to the Fengxian pawnshop, the Chun brothers had already waited for a long time. Compared to before, both of them seemed to have changed a lot. Especially Chun Yushan, that kind of forthright aura that was like a green mountain had disappeared and was replaced by a deep haze. Shen Miao swept a glance at Chun Yushan and Chun Yuhai and had an idea in her heart. Presumably these two people had already inquired about the Chun family's younger sister's news. Perhaps they had even seen it with their own eyes. To personally witness one's own brothers falling into such a miserable situation, for the people of the pugilistic world who were decisive in killing, it would be a great stimulation. Otherwise in the previous lifetime the Chun family would not have gone to assassinate Prince Yu without a care for the consequences. Shin young lady. Chun Yuhai spoke first. Previously Shen young lady said that the imperial family would not be able to trace the Chun family. Is it possible to tell us two brothers? Ji Yushu looked at his own teacup, as if he could see a flower in it, but he deliberately did not look at Shen Miao. Shen Miao sighed. Naturally I also want to help, but like what was said before, in this way the risk that I am taking is also great. From a certain point of view, the Shen family and your Chun family are tied on the same boat. If anything goes wrong, the Shen family will also suffer. Chen Yushan paused and said, I know that this trip is somewhat difficult, so if young lady is willing to help, half of my Chun family's business will be given to the Shen family. When the words were said, even Ji Yushu could not help but look up at Chen Yushan. The Chun family was the wealthiest in Jiangnan, and Jiangnan had been a fertile land since ancient times. The Chun family's money was more than the imperial family, so now that they took the initiative to give out half of their business to the Shen family, it was tantamount to adding wings to a tiger. When Shen Miao heard it, she could not help but be somewhat absent-minded as she looked at Chen Yushan's pleading face. The Chen family sisters were tortured, and in order to take revenge, the Chen family was actually willing to pay such a price. They clearly knew that even if she took action, she would not be able to sit back and relax. Even so, they were still willing to gamble. This could only show the position of the Chun sisters in the Chun family's heart. In her previous life, she was trapped in prison and was isolated and helpless in the inner palace. If the Shen family was still around at that time, would her father, mother and elder brother also save her at all costs? Miss Shen. Chen Yushan reminded when he saw Shen Miao in a daze. Shen Miao recovered to her senses and smiled gently. Half of the family business is fine. I am helping you with this, but it is not because of your family business. It is nothing more than to form a good relationship. In the future, if there is a need for your Chen family, I hope that you will not decline. Secondly, I also have enmity with the residence of Prince Yu, and if the residence of Prince Yu is not destroyed, there will be a day when trouble will come. She looked at Chen Yushan. Now we are all on the same boat. Chen Yushan looked at Shen Miao, who was in front of him. Her eyes were clear and her tone was sincere. It was as if every word that she said was powerful and could be done. From the first time they met until now, she did not behave like a budding girl. Chen Yushan couldn't help but think that if the Chun clan sisters had the temperament and ability of the young woman before him, they wouldn't be in such a miserable state now. Thinking of the Chun sisters, Chen Yushan's slightly better mood immediately turned gloomy again. He said, What is young lady Shen's method? You do not need to ask about the imperial family's side for the time being. It will be better after a period of time. In addition, if you want to take action, it is best to do it next month. Next month in the residence of Prince Yu will marry my Tangjia, and on the second day of the marriage, everything will be lax. At that time you can take action early in the morning and it will be foolproof. Chen Yushan wanted to say something, but at the end he shook his head. How can you end the imperial family side within a month? Shen Miao looked at Ji Yushu, who was drinking tea, with a smile that was not a smile. You do not need to worry about this. The most urgent matter is to gather men and horses. After a pause, she then continued to speak. Prince Yu residence is not small and you must first understand the layout. On the day of taking action, other than my Tangjia, after saving the person, you must cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Chapter 211. Don't worry, we brothers know. Qin Yuhai said. I don't know what is the rule of exterminating a family in the Jianghu. What I mean by exterminating the weeds by the roots means that women, children, young and old, servants and concubines are not to be spared. The entire Prince Yu residence will completely become a tomb. Chen Yushan and Chen Yuhai were both stunned. Chen Yuhai frowned. Even servants and concubines? Most of those concubines are pitiful people that Prince Yu captured. Shen Miao sneered. A centipede dies but never falls down. If young Master Chen wants to be merciful, you will only harm the Chen family, and my Shen family will also be implicated. She spoke coldly. After a moment, Chen Yushan nodded. We won't leave anyone alive to drag you down. This is very good. Shen Miao said. Then wish both of you to take revenge and wash the residence in blood. After chatting with the Chun brothers for a while longer, the Chun brothers stood up and took their leave. After they left, Ji Yushu finally opened his mouth to speak. Shen young lady, you are so young but seem to know a lot of things. Just now I could see clearly that the Chun brothers are at least experienced and knowledgeable people and actually followed your arrangements. Shun young lady, it is the first time that I have met such an intelligent and beautiful female like you. One do not know if there will be a chance in the future to go for an outing with you in the suburbs in spring, admire the lake in summer, and enjoy the boat in late autumn. He was still saying it well at the beginning, but the more he said it, the more outrageous it became. He was like a lecher who took liberties with a good young lady. Manager Ji, Shin Miao asked, don't tell me you just wanted to tell me this. Ji Yushu cleared his throat. In fact, I only want to tell Shin young lady that the news is already done and has been sent to the palace. One think that not long later, Shin young lady's desired result would be achieved. Shin Miao's heart was slightly shocked. Even though she knew that the Fengxian pawnshop had the ability, she did not know that the other party's actions were that fast. Presumably there would be people in the palace who would receive them, else to quietly infiltrate the palace, one fear that it would take a lot of effort. This Fengxian pawnshop's water was also very deep. She didn't hide her deal with the Chun brothers just now because she knew it was impossible to hide it. Many thanks to Manager Ji. Shun Miao's eyes drooped down. After the matter is completed, the promise with Manager Ji will be kept. Ji Yushu was silent for a moment before asking in a rare serious tone, Shun young lady, this one has a matter that does not understand. Go ahead. Shun young lady is using the Shun family as the price to do business with me. Are you not afraid that there will be a day when I want the Shun family to do dangerous things and push the Shun family to the cusp of the wind and waves? This deal would not be worthwhile. After saying that, Ji Yushu stared at Shun Miao and paid attention to her expression. Shun Miao did not even blink as she lightly said, rather than worrying about future difficulties, it is better to worry about the present problems. If that day really comes, it can only be said to be the fate of my Shun family. Ji Yushu was somewhat puzzled. Really? It's fake. In the secret room, Xie Jingxing listened to the movements coming from the side and said lazily, only Yushu that fool would believe her words. Gao Yang said, this girl's deceiving skills are already at the point of perfection. How would Yushu be her opponent? No need to worry. Xie Jingxing said unhurriedly, once on my boat, it would not be that simple to get down. When Shun Miao got up to bid farewell to Ji Yushu suddenly said, oh right. Shun young lady, previously you wanted me to inquire about that young lady Lu Ying. There seems to be news of her whereabouts. If Shun young lady is anxious, perhaps there would be a result in these few days. However, Shun Miao's reply made Ji Yushu stunned for a moment. Shun Miao said, no rush. Manager Ji can slowly search. I will also slowly wait. Chapter 212. After she left, Ji Yushu then shook his head and said as he walked into the room, really a woman that is more unfathomable than young lady Xiaoyao. At least young lady Xiaoyao would be happy to gift pearls, but this one, could it be that she would be happier to gift heads? He shuddered and quickly walked into the room. In the palace, in the emperor's study, the memorials on the table were piled up high. Emperor Wenhui sat in front of the table, and the memorials were spread out, but he did not even take a look at them. He was already in the prime of his life and was about to enter his 60s. Even though he was still hale and hearty, there were spots of white at his temples. The matters of the world were mostly just a reincarnation, and there were times when he was young and full of vigor. Even though he was now filled with lofty aspirations, the way everyone looked at him was that of a tiger that was gradually aging. There would always be a new tiger that would inherit his position. At this moment Emperor Wenhui's expression was heavy. As he grew older, he became thinner and his skin was so loose that it seemed to stick to his bones, showing a strange old age. He spoke in a hoarse voice and one could vaguely hear the monstrous anger in his voice. Number 11 really killed an assassin that looked exactly the same? The two black-clad men standing in front of him said, reporting to your majesty, yes. The person that was caught had been tortured. In addition, the trusted aide of His Highness Prince Wen that was caught in the residence of Prince Wen also personally admitted that Prince Wen had executed a masked guard a few days ago. Emperor Wenhui closed his eyes and suddenly raised his hand. The paperweight on the table flew out and broke into several pieces on the ground. After a moment, he then sneered. Number 11, Zhen had still underestimated him. There were many eyes and ears in the palace. The imperial concubines, officials, and even the Empress. These eyes and ears were all to survive in the palace, and whoever had more information would have the first chance to win. The emperor was no exception. Only when his eyes were everywhere would the dragon throne be more stable. At the beginning, he accidentally heard from his eyes that Prince Yu had killed an assassin that looked exactly the same as the previous one. Emperor Wenhui did not believe it. The imperial family's feelings were cold, and he had stepped on the corpses of his brothers to sit on the emperor's throne. Leaving behind Prince Yu, who was ranked 11th, was because Emperor Wenhui always remembered that dangerous night when Prince Yu used his body to block the danger and was drenched in blood to save his life. Emperor Wenhui often thought that for so many years, he treated Prince Yu well, not only because of the kindness of that leg, but it also represented that Emperor Wenhui still had kindness. Now that he was an emperor, everyone's feelings for him were no longer pure. Even his sons were scheming against him. But Prince Yu of the first rank was able to remind Emperor Wenhui that in this world, there was still a person who would disregard his own safety to block the sword for him, and he still had a personal disciple. But now it was like a huge joke. It seemed that the scene at that time was a play that was arranged by this personal foot, and even Emperor Wenhui suspected that the crippled leg of Prince Yu was fake. What did Prince Yu want to do? Plotting for the throne? Usurpation? There were so many records in the history books of concealing one's strength and biding one's time, and in one day one's rebellion, Emperor Wenhui only felt anger and humiliation from being deceived. When one was betrayed by a trusted person, the trust would be withdrawn, and not only that, the suspicion would intensify. The people of the imperial family were naturally suspicious, and previously they did not suspect Prince Yu of the first rank because of his sincerity, but now that sincerity had become fake, the seeds of suspicion of the imperial family immediately grew into a towering tree that no one could shake. Send people to guard the residence of Prince Yu. Zhen want to see what tricks he wants to play. Gao Gonggong lowered his head and looked at his eyes and nose as he silently looked at his toes, as if he did not hear the anger of the emperor. It was just that he sighed in his heart. Troubled times, troubled times. Chapter 213. The days passed by, and in the peaceful Ding capital, it was as if nothing had happened. As the end of the year approached, everyone was busy preparing for the New Year's goods, and even the poor family seemed to be filled with a faint joy. However, no matter how happy the days were, there would be people who were not happy. In the palace, Prince Li and Prince Xiang were walking in the garden. In Prince Li's faction, Prince Xiang and Prince Cheng's forces were weak, and they bowed their heads to Prince Li, and their attitude was very respectful. Compared to the Crown Prince's steadiness and the Prince Zhou and Prince Jing brothers' sharpness, Prince Li walked the path of moderation. He was not the most outstanding, and his consort mother was not the most favored, but he was extremely slick in bribing everyone up and down. No matter if it was the courtiers or brothers, they were willing to give him some face, but in private, he was an out-and-out smiling tiger. Sixth older brother. These days one heard that imperial father is very cold to royal Shu. Prince Xiang said. You also heard it. Prince Li smiled. When he smiled, there were small wrinkles at the corner of his eyes, and he looked very easygoing. His attitude was also very easygoing as he chatted with Prince Xiang. Imperial father had always valued royal Shu. These few times royal Shu had a request and entered the palace a few times, but imperial father actually rejected it with the excuse of being busy. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that imperial father deliberately left royal Shu hanging. Emperor Wenhui was extremely benevolent towards Prince Yu. In the beginning, Emperor Wenhui had a favored consort who offended Prince Yu, and that favored consort's family was quite powerful. Emperor Wenhui did not say a word and banished the favored consort into the cold palace. He also publicly warned everyone, 11 is Zhan's brother, and to be disrespectful to him is to be disrespectful to Zhan. It was because Emperor Wenhui agreed to almost all of Prince Yu's requests that this sudden change in attitude was noticed by everyone. But why is this so? Prince Xiang was puzzled. What did royal Shu do to anger imperial father? But for so many years, even if royal Shu overstepped his bounds, imperial father would not blame him. These days one did not hear of anything happening to royal Shu. Do you know why royal Shu entered the palace to seek help from imperial father? Prince Xiang shook his head. Seventh younger brother. Prince Li patted his shoulder. as if an elder brother was admonishing his insensible younger brother. One must pay more attention to everything in the palace. You are so honest that I, sixth older brother, cannot help you to worry about everything. Prince Xiang smiled. I follow sixth older brother. Sixth older brother is smarter than me and what sixth older brother says. I heard that royal Shu of the matter is the Shen family. Prince Xiang was suddenly enlightened. Could it be that royal Shu angered imperial father because of the Shen family matter? He thought about it and said, but royal uncle is marrying the daughter of the Shen family's second household. Imperial father will not be angry because of the second household of the Shen family, right? When emperor of the son of emperor, of emperor. If Prince Yu of the first rank were to anger Emperor Wen Hui, unless his request was out of line, after living in the imperial family for so long, the emperor's bottom line was nothing more than power. The Shen family's second household, Shangui, was a third-rank civil official and did not have any real power in his hands. Thus it would not affect the overall situation. Emperor Wen Hui did not need to get angry with Prince Yu over this. That's right. Prince Li said meaningfully. But royal uncle's request is to marry the daughter of the first household of the Shen family, Shan Miao. I see. Prince Xiang then thought clearly. That Shen Xian holds the military power in his hands and royal Shu wanting to marry the daughter of the Shen family would be violating imperial father's taboo. But why would Uncle Wang suddenly want to marry Shan Miao? Wasn't he going to marry Shen Qing? Even if imperial father allows him to do as he pleases, this is a sensitive matter. Imperial uncle will not make such a mistake. I don't know either. King Li shook his head and said, although uncle has been out of line in these years, he has always followed his duty as a minister. This time it is outrageous. Chapter 214. Imperial father would definitely not let royal Shu marry Shan Miao, but this time imperial father did not directly explain it to royal Shu and instead avoided meeting, as if it was a warning. Most likely it is that one's patience has been worn out. Prince Li smiled bitterly. It is better for both of us not to talk about these as it has nothing to do with us. These days imperial father does not look very happy, so one must not stand in front of others. Sixth older brother is right. Prince Xiang nodded his head. After both of them left, a person slowly walked out from the depths of the garden. It was Prince Ding Fuxiu. He stood in the garden and it was obvious that he had heard the conversation between Prince Li and Prince Xiang. He looked at the back of the two leaving figures and muttered thoughtfully, Shan Miao? At the top floor of the Lin Jiangxian's pavilion, Ji Yushu finished reading the letter in Gao Yang's hands and burned it in the burning charcoal pile. The news had already spread out and Emperor Wen Hui was also suspicious of the old dog. This time the old dog had lifted a rock to smash his own feet, and did not know it himself. Ji Yushu was somewhat rejoicing in others' misfortune. Gao Yang shook his head. It is better to be careful. One cannot make any mistakes now. I know. Ji Yushu touched his nose. What is third older brother Xie busy with recently that one cannot see him? Which day is he not busy? Gao Yang suddenly sighed. One do not know if it is right or wrong to follow his temper. I believe in third older brother Xie. Ji Yushu said, third older brother Xie's ability is so great, so what are you blindly worrying about? He had planned for so long, and even if he could not succeed, it would not be a problem for him to escape unscathed. Gao Yang, you are just thinking too much. You look at our third older brother Xie. Even if there are many things in his heart, he can still live freely. This is what a man should be. Ji Yushu was obviously Xie Jingxing's loyal follower, and his words were filled with admiration towards Xie Jingxing. Gao Yang rolled his eyes at him. Bootlicker? Who is bootlicker? Moreover, one need to see who the other party is and if it is worth it. He looked at the other in disdain. For example, you, even if you kneel down and beg me, I will not do it. Gao Yang smiled gently. Is that so? Then don't come to me for medicine in the future. Even if you beg me on your knees, I won't prescribe it for you. Ji Yushu was surprised for a moment before immediately changing the topic. Actually, in the past I felt that the youths in the Ding capital were all embroidered pillows, good to look at but not useful. Only third Xie older brother is a man. But now I admire another person, and feel that other than third Xie older brother, There is someone else in the Ding capital who is considered to be a young hero. Oh, you even have someone you admire. How refreshing, Gao Yang said indifferently. Who is it that can enter your discerning eyes? Shen family's young lady Shan Miao. Ji Yushu slapped his thigh. Damn it. I have never seen such a courageous female before. They even dared to scheme against the imperial family. Moreover, to Prince Yu residence, that is the residence of a first prince, they would wipe them all out. That was before you saw it. Gao Yang snorted coldly. Previously Shen Miao burned down her own ancestral hall, and even dared to gamble with her own life. At that time, Gao Yang felt that Shen Miao was really a lunatic. These people were used to planning everything, and when they make a move they would be sure to kill. At first glance, Gao Yang saw this kind of reckless way of doing things. He was certain that Shen Miao would not be able to live for long under this kind of reckless way of doing things. He did not think that in the end it was him who made a mistake. Every time it seemed to be reckless, at the end she would be the winner. Gao Yang sometimes felt that it was very strange. These kind of people would see themselves as exquisite porcelain, and unless it was a last resort, they would not risk their lives against others, as the other party was not worth to use their own life to fight. On the other hand, Shen Miao was at the other extreme. She treated herself as the hardest rock, and the people who went against her were like porcelain. She didn't seem to have lost anything, but those porcelain that went against her were all broken into pieces. Chapter 215. Not everyone had the courage to treat themselves as a stone, and because of this, Gao Yang's heart felt that Shen Miao was more dangerous. And for an enemy that could grow up, the best way was to strangle her before she matured. It was just that. Gao Yang was somewhat uncertain of what Xie Jingxing's thoughts were. It was impossible for Xie Jingxing to not see the variables on this girl. If Shen Miao became an obstacle in their plans, it would only spoil the big matter. She had such brave deeds before? Ji Yushu said in surprise before nodding his head. It is normal for the daughter of the formidable great general to be more valiant. Even though she did not have martial arts and was not raised by Shen Xian, with this temperament, no one would dare to bully her. Seeing that Gao Yang was somewhat lost in thought, Ji Yushu suddenly thought of something and continued. Speaking of which, this time even though I was the one who created the news about the imperial family matters, but everything was done according to Shan Miao's plans. Now thinking about it, she was really somewhat scary. One did not know what happened to Prince Yu, but these days he seemed to have lost his head from anger, and actually told Emperor Wen Hui that he wanted to marry Shen Miao. He clearly knew that Shen Xian had military power in his hands, and whoever married Shen Miao would become a person with ill intentions in the eyes of the emperor. Yet Prince Yu actually made such a mistake. Moreover, Emperor Wen Hui really suspected to the end, and if he added a little more fire, one feared that even if Prince Yu died, Emperor Wen Hui would not even blink his eyes. In this way, would it not be convenient for the Chun family to handle things? Shen Miao's plan was interlinked, and there was not a single mistake in the calculations. Because she is a person without accidents. Gao Yang was somewhat rueful. Xie Jingxing was right. Every time Shen Miao did something that seemed dangerous, at the end it was exactly the same as what she wanted to achieve. In her plans there were never any accidents. Gao Yang mischievously thought, if there was a day that he could see Shen Miao panicking and being dumbfounded because of an accident, one did not know how happy it would be. In short, I think that this Shen Miao is a person worth befriending. Ji Yushu said seriously, adding to the fact that I see her appearance, one think that after a few years she will become a beauty. How can I, Ji Yushu, miss such a smart and beautiful female? I've decided. I'll put her on the same level as Miss Peony in my heart. From now on, aside from Miss Peony, she can also be considered a close friend of mine. Gao Yang simply turned his head away and didn't want to look at this fool anymore. And the confidant that Ji Yushu spoke of was picking and choosing in the room. Younger sister, are you picking so many things to add to Shen Qing's dowry? Shen Qiu scratched his head and asked. Shen Miao picked out a portion of the things that the emperor had bestowed upon her, and one did not know what she was looking for. Finally she picked out a jade pillow that was very smooth and cold to the touch. Even if it was placed, it would give off a sparkling jade light and was very beautiful. Could it be that younger sister wants to give this to Shen Qing? As the day of Shen Qing's marriage approached, everyone in the Shen family began to worry about Shen Qing's marriage. A few days ago Shen Yu asked Shen Miao what to give to Shan Qing as a dowry, and coincidentally Shen Xiu heard it. But seeing that there was no movement from Shan Miao, one thought that she finally remembered the matter today. This? Shen Miao picked up the jade pillow and shook her head. No. Oh. Shen Xiu asked, does younger sister want to use it yourself? This jade pillow looks good. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. This jade pillow was called the ice silkworm pillow. In the previous lifetime when she entered the palace, it was stuffed into her dowry box by Shan Exine. Afterwards she became the Empress, and Mei Foran was deeply favored by the Emperor. One day she said that she was not feeling well, and had some headaches, and insisted on using this pillow. At that time the ice silkworm pillow was given to Wan Yu, but Wan Yu did not agree and quarreled with Mei Foran, causing the pillow to break. Fu Xiuyi severely punished Wan Yu, and after a while, the news of the Xiongnu's marriage came. Now thinking about it, it was all an old dream, but it still pierced through one's heart. Younger sister? Shen Qiu saw that Shen Miao did not speak and asked worriedly. This is for me to give to others. Shen Miao said, as for eldest sister's dowry, if eldest brother has time, then help me pick one. If eldest brother does not have time, it is the same to let Gu Yu buy it. Her words were cold to Shen Qing. Oh. Shen Xiu answered slowly. It was only when Shan Miao walked out of the room that he smacked his head. Silly. I forgot to ask younger sister who to give the pillow to. Outside the room, Jingzhe also asked, who is young lady giving the pillow to? A friend. Since there would be a need for the Chen family in the future, one must express it. Kindness and small favors, sending charcoal in snowy weather, one would be able to obtain loyal allies. She learnt the art of controlling people bit by bit from Fu Xiuyi. Calming one's mind was undoubtedly a good thing for the Chen family's younger sister, whose mind was in disorder. Chapter 216. Time flew by, and in a blink of an eye it was the 8th day of the 12th lunar month. The 8th day of the 12th lunar month was an auspicious day, suitable for weddings and funerals. It was also the day that Prince Yu residence, which had been silent for many years, would marry a Wangfei. After Prince Yu had been a widower for many years, Prince Yu residence finally welcomed a new mistress. However, everyone knew that this was not something to be happy about. Just like the previous Prince Yu's Wangfei, who knew when this happy event would turn into a funeral? The target that Prince Yu residence was marrying was the D daughter of the Shun family's second household in the Ding capital, Shanqing. There were 3 D daughters in the formidable great general's residence. Shen Miao was famous for being an idiot. Shen Yu was famous for her talents, and Shen Qing could be considered as beautiful, generous, capable, and intelligent. In the end, such a good young lady married to Prince Yu of the first rank, which made one unable to help but sigh. That Shen Gui must be crazy. Someone in the crowd that was watching the bustle whispered, isn't this like watching one's daughter jump into the fire pit by herself? Really sinful. What do you know? Another person disagreed. I heard from my official Biao older brother that this eldest Shen young lady and Prince Yu had been secretly having an affair, and her stomach was already pregnant. If it was not because she was pregnant with the imperial flesh and blood, she would have been drowned. Ah, is what you said true? When the surrounding people heard it, they were somewhat surprised, as it was obvious that they did not know about this before. That person proudly shook his head. Isn't it so? One heard that during the returning banquet in the palace, all the civil and military officials saw it with their own eyes. So this eldest Shen young lady is not pitiful at all, and only has herself to blame. It is indeed so. Getting pregnant before marriage is immoral. Really do not know shame. How could the second household of the Shen family teach such a daughter? General Shen is noble and virtuous, but it is really a disgrace to the family. What does this have to do with General Shen? General Shen is not in the Ding capital all year round, and is still a daughter raised by the other 2 households. Everyone were talking at once, and their words were filled with disdain towards Shen Qing. From the initial sympathy to the subsequent abuse, it seemed that it was just a matter of a short moment. Even Shen Gui and Ren Wanyun were poked in the back. The person in the crowd who had initially said that Shan Qing was pregnant laughed quietly, turned around and disappeared into the crowd. In the Shen residence, the matchmaker was grooming Shan Qing. Ren Wanyun, who was standing behind Shan Qing, tightly twisted the handkerchief in her hands, wishing that she could tear it into pieces. She had raised her daughter well, But now she had to watch helplessly as Shen Qing jumped into the fire pit. There wasn't a mother who didn't love her children. For Ren Wanyun, all of this was like someone cutting her flesh with a knife. Unlike Ren Wanyun, Shen Qing did not have such strong emotions. She quietly sat on her seat and let the matchmaker handle her. The matchmaker smiled and said, "Eldest young miss, this old woman is going to twist the dough for you. This is a little painful, so eldest young miss should endure it first. After a while, you will be a beautiful bride." It would have been better if she didn't say this, but once she said it, Ren Wanyun only felt pain in her heart and almost fainted. Shen Qing looked at herself in the bronze mirror with a stupefied expression. If it wasn't for her eyes blinking from time to time, people would have thought that she was a lifeless corpse. The matchmaker's heart was somewhat apprehensive when she saw Shen Qing's appearance. She took out a thin cotton thread from the box and started to twist the dough for Shen Qing. This twisting of dough was to twist the face until it was white and clean, and it was indeed very painful. In the past, those eldest young ladies would always shout out a few words of pain. However, when the twisting thread landed on Shen Qing's face, Shen Qing was still expressionless, as if she was dead. Ren Wanyun could not help but shed tears. Chapter 217. When the matchmaker saw this scene, she saw that the bride not only did not have the joy of a bride, but her entire body was filled with despair, and her heart understood a little. Ji Xiang did not say anything else. She quickly put on her makeup and found an excuse to leave. There was only Ren Wanyun, Shen Qing, and a few maids left in the room. Ren Wanyun's tears could not be stopped no matter what. In just a few short months' time she had aged like those old matrons. There were many wrinkles on her face and there were many more white hairs. There was no longer the well-rounded and astute appearance of a noblewoman in the past. "Mother, do not need to worry." It was Shen Qing who opened her mouth first. Her voice was hoarse and there was a strange tone to it. It seemed as if she was crying and laughing at the same time. She said, "Everything that I have suffered today will not be in vain. I will avenge myself. Qing, your mother has let you down." Ren Wanyun went forward and hugged her. Shen Qing woodenly allowed her to hug her and said in a hoarse voice, "Father and mother are unable to help me. I will take revenge myself." Her tone was gloomy, but everyone could feel the soaring resentment. Shen Gui's cold eyes watching from the side and Ren Wanyun's scruples finally made them helpless in the face of Shen Qing's marriage, and Shen Qing finally hated her own parents. Ren Wanyun's heart was like being struck by lightning when she was hated by her own daughter. However, she knew that for things to come to this step, it was not without her reason. If she did not scheme against Shen Miao in the beginning, if she went out to take a look at that night in Wulong Temple, or if she did not write a letter to Prince Yu to explain that she was swapped, would Shen Qing not have fallen into such a desperate situation? She forced a smile. "Qing need not be afraid. Mother swears that mother will definitely take revenge for you. Also, your second older brother will definitely let that little slut's reputation be ruined." In the hall outside of the Shen residence, old Shen Foreign sat on the chair in the middle with a calm face. Shen Yuanbo was half lying in her embrace and seemed to be somewhat afraid of the ruthless look on old Shen Foreign's face as he obediently dared not move. "Add what dowry?" Old Shen Foreign said. "Do such a shameless thing and still have the face to add dowry. Second brother, you raised such a good daughter." Old Shen Foreign loved vanity and loved to put on face outside. So this time Shen Qing had such a big matter that could not be hidden from her. Knowing that all the civil and military officials knew about Shen Qing's scandal, old Shen Foreign felt that her old face had been thrown away and naturally hated Shen Qing and her mother. Shen Gui quickly complied and wished that he could divorce Ren Wanyun now. When Shen Qiu heard this, his expression was a little strange, as if he wanted to laugh. Most likely old Shen Foreign herself had forgotten that she was originally a songstress, and speaking of which, how much better could she be compared to Shen Qing? She was just relying on the fact that she was the old foreign of the Shen family, and really thought that she was a pure and noble young lady. Shen Wan did not make a sound, and Chan Ro Chiu would not take the initiative to pounce on old Shen Foreign's anger. As for Shen Xian and Luo Shui Yan, they stood at the same spot, as if they did not hear old Shen Foreign's words. After old Shen Foreign vented her anger, she said, "The dowry need not be too much. It is not worthwhile to spend my Shen family's money on this kind of girl." When the words were said, the contempt in Luo Shuiyan's eyes increased. Old Shen Foreign most favored the first household, and even though she valued males over females, but Shen Qing also grew up in front of Old Shen Foreign. Obviously knowing that Shen Qing's marriage to Prince Yu residence was a tragic beginning, and giving more money would perhaps make Shen Qing live more comfortably, but one did not think that Old Shen Foreign was so stingy and ruthless. Indeed, she was a prostitute that could not be seen in public. Shen Gui complied again. He had always had the attitude of a filial son. When Old Shen Foreign saw that he was so obedient, the expression on her face eased up a little and her eyes fell onto Shan Exine. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly heard Shen Yu exclaim, "Second older brother?" Chapter 218. Everyone followed Shen Yu's line of sight and saw a young male walking in from the door. He was dressed in a stone-green robe, and this male was considered upright. Upon closer inspection, there was a 60 to 70% similarity to Shen Gui, but there was a hint of arrogance between his brows. This person was not anyone else but the second household of the Shen family, Shen Gui's eldest son, Shen Yuan. In the second household, Shen Yuan had always been intelligent and quick-witted. Compared to Shen Qiu's military achievements, which were obtained step by step, Shen Yuan was much more of a genius. When he was young, he obtained first place in the imperial examinations and his ranking was not bad. Afterwards he obtained the appreciation of nobles and embarked on an official career. But previously he had to be a low-ranking official outside for 3 years, and this year was the last year. He was supposed to stay in the Ding capital to be an official after the end of the year. Who knew that Shen Qing would meet with such an incident, and he must have rushed back just in time to see his younger sister's wedding day. Even Shen Yu could not help but hide behind Shen Wan. Shen Wan patted Shen Yu's back and his gaze landed on Shen Yuan. Towards Shen Yuan, the people in the Shen residence were more or less fearful. Perhaps it was because Shen Yuan had an official title at such a young age, or perhaps it was because he was young and mature, which made others feel that he had a deep scheming mind. In short, Shen Yu and the previous Shen Miao were very afraid of him. The happiest person was none other than Old Shen Foreign. She was pleasantly surprised as she waved at Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan Bo, who was in Old Shen Foreign's embrace, also called out crisply, "Second older brother." Shen Yuan then smiled and went forward to greet Old Shen Foreign and called out, "Grandmother." He then touched Shen Yuan Bo's head. Yuan Bo grew taller again. One fear that Yuan had rushed back. Chun Roqiu smiled and said, "One must be tired from the journey. Do you want to take a rest first?" Now that Ren Wanyun was not around, she was the one in charge of the Shen residence and naturally took out the air of a matriarch. Shen Yuan turned his head and looked at Chan Roqiu. One did not know why, but Chan Roqiu's heart sank and a sense of dread arose. After not seeing for a year, Shen Yuan became more and more unfathomable. Chan Roqiu had always been intelligent, and when the children were young, they had tried to trip Shen Yuan up, but Shen Yuan was unexpectedly intelligent, and in the end, the one who suffered was Chan Roqiu. Chan Roqiu thought that Ran Wanyun was fortunate to have given birth to such an intelligent son, so even though she was dissatisfied with the second household, Chan Roqiu did not dare to completely annoy the other. "No need," Shen Yuan said. "I came back this time to see younger sister get married. If we rest now, I'm afraid there won't be enough time." Speaking of Shen Qing, the atmosphere in the room became somewhat awkward and Old Shen Foreign did not respond. Shen Yuan was not moved in the slightest, and his gaze looked towards Shan Qiu's side without any hesitation. The person standing there was Shen Miao. "It's been a while. Fifth sister has changed a lot." He narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Fifth sister has changed so much that I can't even recognize her anymore. Shen Miao calmly looked back at him. Shen Yuan's gaze was dark and probing, as if it was a poisonous snake crawling in the mud, unhurriedly entangling with a cold air that made one's blood run cold. She smiled gently. "Second older brother is still the same." Chan Roqiu's gaze paused for a moment, and Shen Yu was somewhat rejoicing in others' misfortune. Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan coincidentally frowned at the same time, but Shan Qiu smiled and said, "Not bad. From second younger brother's look, there is no change." This made Shen Yuan to look at Shan Qiu before saying meaningfully, "Did not think that fifth younger sister and eldest brother's relationship would be so good. Biological siblings, naturally the relationship is good." Shen Miao smiled gently. Does second older brother not go and see eldest sister now? One think that it would be in time to add to the dowry. Chapter 219. Shen Yuan looked deeply at Shen Miao and said with a smile, correct. I will go now. Finishing, he then bowed towards old Shen Furen grandmother. I will go take a look at younger sister first. As the eldest brother, I am not by younger sister's side, and now that she is about to get married, one do not know if she would be bullied in the future. I can only speak a few words to her, and will leave first. Finishing, he turned around and did not look at everyone as he left in quick steps. From the beginning to the end, he did not say a single word to Shen Gui. In the past, even though Shen Gui and Shen Yuan's relationship was not particularly close, but they were after all father and son. Shen Gui valued Shen Yuan and took care of him, and Shen Yuan treated Shen Gui with respect. Today's attitude was obviously a problem. Shen Gui's face was livid as he clenched his fists. Old Shen Furen looked at him resentfully and felt somewhat depressed in her heart. She waved her hands and said, "Help me back to the room." Old Shen Furen did not intend to go to today's wedding banquet. From Old Shen Furen's point of view, most of the guests that were invited to the wedding banquet were high-ranking officials and nobles, and knew the ins and outs of this marriage very clearly. If she were to go and embarrass her old face, it would not be a good fortune, so she immediately let Zhang Mama help her back to the room. After old Shen Furen left, the hall became somewhat awkward. Shen Yu glanced at Shen Miao and asked, "Fifth younger sister, what did you gift for eldest sister's dowry?" "Just some jewelry," Shen Miao said lightly. Shen Yu made an "oh" sound and saw that she did not want to bother with it. Even though she was angry in her heart, she did not show it on her face in front of Shen Xian and wife, and quietly stood by Chan Ro Chio's side. Shen Wan looked at Shen Xian, eldest brother. Now that Yuaner is back, what should be done? What does Yuaner's return have to do with me? Shen Xian said in puzzlement, I cannot even manage my own Jiao Jiao and Shoer. Why would I care about number 2's son? Number 3, your third household is sparse in numbers. If there is nothing, then help number 2. After all, you are all brothers, he said earnestly. Shen Xian, this person looked honest and sincere, but in fact his words were like that of a poisonous snake. This point could be seen from the Marquis of Lin and Xie Ding, who had been dealing with him for decades but never had any good words with him. When these words were said, Shen Wan did not have time to express anything when Chan Ro Chio was so angry that her nails dug into her palms. Everyone knew that the third household had few descendants, and other than Shen Yu, Chan Ro Chio did not even have a son. Even though Shen Wan had deep feelings for Chan Ro Chio, but old Shen Furen had long wanted to bring in concubines for Shen Wan because Chan Ro Chio was unable to give birth to a son. Shen Xian was stabbing a knife into Chan Ro Chio's heart. That's right, sister-in-law. Luo Shuiyan also smiled and said, don't always worry about other people's matters. I know that the two of you are kind, but it's time for you to think about your own matters. Yu Jie is already so big, in the future when she marries, she won't have a brother to help her. Unavoidably it will be a bit too weak. Shen Miao's eyes were filled with smiles. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan were not good at fighting in the inner courtyard, but the battlefield experience had made them more sensitive than others. Shen Wan and wife wanted to sow discord but were muddled by Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan's 4 tales of weight. Younger sister, let us also go and see eldest younger sister. Shen Qiu patted Shen Miao's shoulder. Your additional dowry is still at my place. Shen Miao knew that Shen Qiu had something to say to her, and nodded her head in agreement. After greeting the few of them, she walked towards the western courtyard with Shen Qiu. Younger sister, Shen Yuan has enmity towards you, Shen Qiu said. I know. He could possibly know the reason for the matter. Shen Qiu was somewhat anxious. He is a person who likes to do mischief in the dark and is quite scheming. One fear that he would take revenge for Shen Qing and think of ways to harm you. You stay in the residence these days and do not go out. Chapter 220. Shen Qiu had a natural hostility towards Shen Yuan, and this was also an unclear reason. In fact, Shen Yuan and Shen Qiu did not have any grudges, but Shen Qiu just did not see Shen Yuan as an eyesore. Perhaps some people were born to be enemies. Eldest brother, if he really had the intention to harm me, no matter how well I hide, he would be able to think of a way. Moreover, what can he do? Don't worry, since he's such a cautious person, he definitely wouldn't just randomly find someone to kill me. It's definitely a trick. When it came to tricks, who could compare to her, who had already died once? Younger sister, you are still young and do not understand the dangers of some matters. Shen Qiu was even more anxious. Shen Yuan is not a good person. If you are so careless, you will suffer. Eldest brother, do not worry. Shen Miao looked at Shen Qiu. Counter soldiers with arms and water with earth. If there is really anything, is there not still eldest brother? She smiled coldly, but there was a sentence in her heart that she did not say to Shen Qiu. In the previous lifetime, Shen Qiu's death was definitely not an accident. She did not know who it was from the second household or the third household, but these people would not be able to escape. Even if Shen Yuan did not take action against her, she would not let Shen Yuan have an easy time. Just treat it as repaying the debt from the previous lifetime. In the Kai Yun Yuan of the Eastern Courtyard, when Ren Wan Yun saw Shen Yuan, she went forward to hug him and sobbed. The fear and helplessness that she had these days finally broke out the moment she saw Shen Yuan. Ren Wan Yun choked with sobs and was unable to say a word. Even Shen Qing, who was like a puppet, when she saw Shen Yuan, there was a flash of brilliance in her despairing eyes. Shen Yuan comforted Ren Wan Yun for a while before going forward to touch Shen Qing's head. Shen Qing endured it and finally burst into tears. As she cried, she said, "Second older brother, why did you not come back earlier?" When Ren Wan Yun saw Shen Qing crying, she also cried. In a moment, the cries in the room shook the heavens and it was very miserable. Those who did not know would have thought that it was a funeral and not a happy event. A haze flashed in Shen Yuan's eyes. He had grown up in the general's residence, and even though the most powerful people in the general's residence were Shen Xian and his wife, but from what he saw, the two of them were only martial men who only knew how to fight, and the daughter they gave birth to was also a fool. These people were easily played by the second household in the palm of their hands. As for his mother and younger sister, they had always lived in elegance and wealth. In comparison, that Shen Miao was like a daughter of a small family from the countryside. But now, that nouveau riche idiot had actually forced Ren Wan Yun and Chan Qing to such an extent. To Shen Yuan, this was undoubtedly a provocation. Ren Wan Yun had clearly stated the ins and outs of the matter in the letter that she wrote to him. From Shen Yuan's point of view, even though Ren Wan Yun's plan was not perfect, but for Shen Miao to be able to counterattack and even escape safely, it was somewhat out of his expectations. "Mother, don't cry." Shen Yuan's expression did not change because of this. He said, "There is no use crying." "Yuan." Ren Wan Yun grabbed his hand. "You are the one with the best ideas. You will definitely be able to save your younger sister, right?" Hearing that, Shen Qing also looked at Shen Yuan expectantly. "Second older brother, I beg you to help me. I do not want to marry that person. Originally I should not marry him. Second older brother, help me, help me." Even though Shen Qing was somewhat afraid of this older brother of hers, but since young when she was bullied, Shen Yuan would help her win it back without batting an eyelid. Towards Shen Yuan, Shen Qing both loved and hated him. Now that Shen Yuan was her life-saving straw, naturally she had to grab hold of it. Cannot. Shen Yuan's expression was so calm that it was almost cold. The marriage has already reached such a stage and there is no possibility of turning it around. One cannot harm everyone because of younger sister's willfulness. So younger sister must marry this marriage. Chapter 221. Just as the words were spoken, Shen Qing collapsed onto the ground, and after a pause, she finally cried out in despair. Her actions ruined the makeup she had just put on. Her face was covered in dirt, but she didn't notice it at all. "Is there really no other way?" Ren Wan Yun murmured. "Even though there is no way to destroy this marriage, but my Shen Yuan's younger sister would definitely not be schemed against like this." Shen Yuan coldly said, "For Shen Miao to become so smart in one night, it is either that there is someone guiding her from behind or she was pretending previously. It would be better if there was someone guiding her, but for her to pretend for more than 10 years, it is just too scary." That little slut seemed to have been possessed. Seeing that the matter was about to succeed, she escaped. "Yuaner, that slut cannot be left alive." Ren Wan Yun gritted her teeth, thinking that everything today is all thanks to that slut. "I can't wait to eat her flesh and drink her blood." Currently mother cannot deal with her unscrupulously because of eldest Bo's family. Heard that eldest Bo will be staying in the Ding capital for another half a year so that Shen Miao's backing will be longer. Shen Yuan glanced at Shen Qing. Ran Wanyun's body trembled. But one cannot just let it go like this. Naturally one cannot let it go. Shen Yuan said, in this world no matter how big the backing is, there will be a day when it falls. Since Shen Miao had a backer, it would be good to let her backer fall. It is also good for eldest Bo's family to stay in the Ding capital. A smile floated on Shen Yuan's lips. Saves me the trouble of going over one by one. Ren Wanyun's heart was somewhat frightened for no reason but looking at Shen Qing who was paralyzed on the ground. A burst of anger immediately burst out. Yuan or one must not let that little slut off. Do not worry. Shen Yuan's gaze was gloomy. To play tricks under my eyelids, I will return the original. Since Shen Miao harmed mother and younger sister, then I will let the first household of the Shen family leave Shen Miao alone. Leaving one person to slowly play, that would be called interesting. He laughed slowly. Shen Qing's bridal makeup had to be redone after all. The matchmaker was surprised to find that this time, Shen Qing's expression was much more lively compared to the previous lifeless one. At the very least she finally seemed to have some human aura. When Shen Yu and Shen Miao came over to add to the dowry, Shen Qing even smiled at both of them. It was just that Shen Qing's body was somewhat swollen due to her pregnancy. These days she had been very anxious. Even if she had put on makeup, she still looked old and haggard. Such a smile not only didn't have the loveliness of a young girl, it also looked somewhat strange and terrifying. Big sister, you must take good care of yourself, Shen Yu said with red eyes. Definitely. Shen Qing complied and looked at Shen Miao before speaking in a hoarse voice. I will definitely repay fifth younger sister's kindness to me. Even though he was smiling, the viciousness in his words made Shen Yu could not help but shiver. I'll be waiting. Shen Miao also smiled. The matters after that became natural. Old Shen Foreign avoided meeting Shen Qing and Shen Qing could only speak to Ren Wanyun. Because this marriage was not a glorious matter, everyone in the Shen residence was somewhat embarrassed. Those celebrations that were used for blessings were done carelessly. At the end, when it was time to board the wedding sedan, it was Shen Yuan who carried Shen Qing onto the sedan. And the most embarrassing thing was that Prince Yu of the first rank did not come to pick up the bride and only sent a housekeeper. When Shen Yuan was carried by Shen Qing, the commoners that surrounded the general residence's entrance were pointing at them, and the conversation was faintly discernible to everyone's ears. They were all saying that Shen Qing did not know shame and was fickle. Even if Ren Wanyun and Shen Yuan were angry in their hearts, they could not kill all the commoners. Chapter 222. When the sedan finally left, Shen Yuan returned to the entrance of the Shen residence and stood by Shen Miao's side. Looking at the sedan leaving, he said, Fifth younger sister seems to be very calm. The one who is marrying is not me, so why would I not be calm? Shen Miao answered. Does fifth younger sister know that once Qing'er marries, what will be the future? What will be the future is not something that you and I can decide. Shen Yuan did not seem to have heard Shen Miao's words as he spoke. The matters of the world are ever changing. Sometimes one would be in a dilemma, but one would not know that in the future there would be light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes one would look at the road in front of them, but one cannot say for sure. His voice suddenly sank. One would be pushing oneself into a dead end. Exactly. Shen Miao smiled. No one can say for sure about the matters of the world. One would have fortune and misfortune at any moment, and one cannot say for sure that there would be no road in front. Shen Yuan finally turned his head and looked at Shen Miao. His pair of eyes looked up and down, making one feel uncomfortable. What made one uncomfortable was his words. I only found out today that fifth younger sister is an intelligent person. Shen Miao did not comment but heard a loud roar from behind. Younger sister. Shen Qiu hurriedly ran over and looked at Shen Yuan vigilantly before speaking to Shen Miao. Younger sister, do not run around. There are many wicked people outside, and one may know a person's face but not their heart. Who knows what kind of wicked moves they would make? Shen Yuan looked at Shen Qiu and smiled again. Eldest brother really knows how to joke. Moreover, fifth younger sister is so intelligent that one fear that no one would be able to scheme against her. As for the saying, One may know a person's face but not their heart, perhaps. There might be someone who is more suitable. Shun Qiu sneered. My younger sister has a pure and kind nature and cannot be compared to those treacherous villains. As her older brother, I naturally have to worry about her from time to time. Else those jackals and wolves that have studied would eat her up in one mouthful and she would not even have a place to cry. Younger sister, let us sit in the horse carriage to the residence of the prince of first rank. The people of the Shen family also wanted to follow to the residence of the prince of first rank to participate in the wedding banquet, but Shan Qiu's words had really expressed his distrust of Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan looked at the back view of the two siblings leaving and a trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. The Shen family's wedding sedan had to travel through more than half of the Ding capital, and it had to go through the most prosperous streets. After all, it was a marriage bestowed by the Empress, so naturally the extravagance had to be grand. Even if everyone knew that this marriage was not honorable, they still wanted to make it known to everyone. On the busiest section of the road, at a seat by the window of the Kuaihua building, the white-dressed man was still waving his folding fan as usual, looking out of the window at the mighty wedding procession as if he was watching a show. The wedding procession sprinkled copper coins as they walked, and the commoners who were watching the bustle rushed forward to snatch the coins. It seemed that the procession was in a jubilant mood. However, only the people in the palanquin knew what they were feeling. This marriage of the Shen family is quite extravagant. Ji Yushu played with the silver in his hands and said, It has been a long time since I have seen such a lively marriage. I wonder if there will be such a grand occasion when I marry Miss Xiaoyao in the future. I'm still thinking about that Miss Peony of yours. Gao Yang looked at him. Yushu, I remember that you still have a fiancé. Does that fiancé of yours know that you are so attentive to Miss Peony? Already said that it was a joke for a child's marriage. Who knows what she looks like? I will not marry. I only love Miss Peony. If Miss Peony is not good, then the fifth young lady of the Shen family is also not bad. He laughed and looked at the person opposite. Third older brother Xia, am I right? Xia Jingxing glanced at him and was too lazy to speak. Gao Yang sneered, Shen Miao? One fear that you would not have the life to marry. What? Don't say that other young lady is like a demon. I only value her intelligence, sensitivity, boldness and meticulousness. Ji Yushu was not convinced. Moreover, she looks not bad. Heard that previously she liked that Prince Ding brat. How can a good young lady's eyesight be bad? Can Prince Ding be compared to me? Really? Gao Yang looked at Ji Yushu. You are really good. But this Shen young lady of yours seems to be in trouble. What trouble? Ji Yushu asked. Shen Qing's older brother, Shen Yuan, has returned. Gao Yang gloated. Shen Miao had tricked Shen Qing into the residence of the prince of first rank, so Shen Yuan would definitely not let Shen Miao off. This Shen Yuan is not someone easy to deal with. In the second household of the general residence, one feared that even Shan Gui would not be as experienced and farsighted as Shen Yuan. Moreover, this Shen Yuan is the most vicious and merciless. When he takes action, he would not be soft. Shen Yuan does not seem to be an ordinary person. Ji Yushu suddenly thought of something. Is he not Fu Xiuyi's people? Just a small minion. Xia Jingxing suddenly opened his mouth and lazily swept his eyes below. A jumping clown. You all even put him in your eyes. Ha! You are still this arrogant. Gao Yang asked, what is next? Wait for others to start and then pick up the scraps. Chapter 223. After the wedding sedan had traversed more than half of the Ding capital, it finally entered the residence of Prince Yu. There were already a number of guests at the entrance of Prince Yu's residence. Even though Prince Yu was usually vicious and cruel, he was after all a member of the imperial family, and the ministers still had to come. Emperor Wen Hui and the princes did not come, but the palace still sent people over to send gifts. Most likely these days, Emperor Wen Hui's attitude made Prince Yu very dissatisfied. Today when the people from the palace came, they did not express to let the other party drink a cup of wedding wine or express their gratitude. When the eunuch that was sent by the palace saw this scene, he sneered in his heart. Perhaps to others they were just a bunch of grass eunuchs, but in fact, these people were the closest to the emperor's side. There must be some problems between Emperor Wen Hui and Prince Yu. Prince Yu was still acting like before, but Emperor Wen Hui was no longer as tolerant as before. Today Prince Yu's actions would only make Emperor Wen Hui angrier. After the people from the palace left, Prince Yu then turned his head to instruct the servants to continue welcoming the guests. Today Prince Yu was wearing a bright red wedding robe, and the fabric and embroidery of the robe were undoubtedly very fine. It was just that on his body one of the trousers was empty and it looked somewhat awkward. And he was born with a somewhat fierce look, but today he had a face full of smiles. One did not know who he was smiling at, but it made the people who saw his smile have a layer of goosebumps. The Shen family had also arrived. Shen Gui and Shan Wan had already gone to find familiar colleagues to chat. Shen Gui had already broken a jar, and since everyone knew about Shan Qing's scandal, it was better to take advantage of the fact that Shan Qing was married into Prince Yu residence and have a marriage relationship with the first prince residence to add some bricks and tiles to his career. As for Shen Wan, there was no need to mention about it. Both of them were ambitious people, and naturally would not miss such a good opportunity. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan sat at one end as they sat at the bride's maiden home. They looked down on Shen Gui's attitude. On the contrary, Ran Wan Yun also came and sat at the side with Shen Yuan. She had carefully made up and covered her red eyes. She was afraid of angering Prince Yu, so she forced a smile, but no matter how one looked at that smile, there was a trace of anger. Shen Yuan did not have any expression, and occasionally his eyes swept across Shen Miao with profound meaning. Shen Qiu noticed Shen Yuan's gaze and would angrily block it back. Luo Shuiyan noticed it and asked thoughtfully, "Brat, what happened between you and Shen Yuan?" Shen Xian and wife did not know of the grudges between Shen Qing and Shen Miao. Thus Shen Qiu hemmed and hawed. I do not see eye to eye with him, and there is some friction." "You are really good." Luo Shuiyan glared at him. "To fight with someone who has no martial arts. Shen Qiu, how old are you this year?" Shen Qiu looked at Shen Miao for help, but Shen Miao pretended not to know and looked at the teacup without speaking. The guests in this room complimented each other, and it looked quite peaceful. In a blink of an eye, it was the time for Shen Qing and Prince Yu to bow to heaven and earth to get married. Shen Qing's head was covered with a veil, and she was supported by her maids, Chun Tao and Shueli. After bowing to the heavens and the earth, Shen Gui's expression was very awkward. Prince Yu of the first rank looked at him with a gloomy gaze, and to let Prince Yu bow to them couple, it was a horrifying matter. Sure enough, the housekeeper of Prince Yu residence arrogantly said, "His Highness Prince Yu's body is inconvenient. This ceremony to the parents, let's dispense with it." When these words were spoken, the hall was silent for a moment. Ran Wan Yun gritted her teeth and the muscles on her cheeks trembled. Since the heavens and earth were already bowed, why was it that when it was the turn to bow to the parents, Prince Yu only remembered that his body was inconvenient? This was clearly Prince Yu not acknowledging Shen Qing, and deliberately embarrassed Shen Gui and Ran Wan Yun. Even though Shen Gui also felt his face burning hot, but he had always been a person who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Fearing that Prince Yu would blame him, he immediately said, "Since His Highness is not well, then let's dispense with it." Chapter 224. Some of the younger guests could not help but sneer and did not conceal their laughter, making Ran Wan Yun almost rush forward to reason with them. Just as she could not bear it any longer, Shen Yuan suddenly reached out to grab her arm and gently shook his head at her. Only then did Ran Wan Yun calm down. Shen Yuan withdrew his hand and his gaze landed on Shen Gui, who was smiling flatteringly in the distance, and there was a moment of haze in his expression. "Number two's actions are too shameful," Luo Shuiyan said in disdain. "Allow others to bully one's own daughter like this? I originally thought that he was only greedy for riches and did not think that he would be so insane." Shen Xian shook his head and said in a disappointed tone, "How did number two become like this? We are doing well but are despised at the same time. Really unlucky," Shen Qiu said unhappily. At the other end, Shen Yu's family were also somewhat ashamed. Even though Shan Wan was also ambitious in his career, he was not as brazen as Shen Gui, and Chan Roqiu held herself to be noble and virtuous because she was from a scholarly family. After all, they were all Shen family, and Shen Gui's attitude made them feel ashamed. After Prince Yu humiliated Shen Gui, he seemed to be very satisfied with everyone's disdain towards the Shen family. When the husband and wife bowed to each other, he deliberately dragged out the time. One did not know if Shen Miao's eyesight was blurry, but when the bride walked past them, Her body seemed to be trembling. When a prince of first rank married, even the nuptial chamber was saved. Shen Qing was pregnant, and if there was any accident in the nuptial chamber, no one would be able to bear the crime of murdering an heir of the imperial family. After Shen Qing was sent to the nuptial chamber, Prince Yu was still outside feasting with the guests and drinking and having fun. "Congratulations, Your Highness, Prince of first rank." The ministers came up to toast. "Same to Prince Yu." Prince Yu also replied. On the surface, Prince Yu was really happy today and actually shared the joy with the ministers, but Shen Miao did not ignore the cold expression that he occasionally swept over. Prince Yu had suffered a setback at her hands and would always think of getting it back. As their gazes came closer, Prince Yu raised his cup to him and suddenly made an obscene gesture as he licked his lips. Shen Miao only looked at such a malicious expression calmly. It was Shen Qiu who was at the side who saw her staring at a distance and followed her gaze. What is younger sister looking at? Prince Yu of the first rank had already turned his head to drink with others, and Shen Qiu did not see anything. Shen Miao stood up. "It is somewhat stuffy and I will go to the door to breathe." "I'll go with you," Shen Qiu quickly said. "No need. With Mo Qing and the rest guarding outside, I will not go far and will be at the door." Shen Miao rejected him and got up to leave the table. Prince Yu's residence was very big and Mo Qing was standing guard in the garden outside. When he saw her coming out, he immediately followed. Shen Miao did not go far and stood at the same spot, looking at the southwest corner of Prince Yu's residence in a daze. Then, a voice came from behind, "Fifth sister." Shen Miao turned her head back and did not know when Shen Yuan had followed and smiled at her. Shen Yuan's smile was different from Fu Xiuyi's gentleness, and also different from Shan Qiu's simple and honest smile. It was not like Ji Yushu's mischievous smile. His smile seemed to contain other meanings, making one very uncomfortable. When he stared into other people's eyes, it was like a venomous snake sizing up its prey. That gloomy and cold aura lingered. Shen Yuan was the most fearful opponent in the second household of the Shun family. The banquet was only halfway and fifth sister came out on her own. I thought that fifth sister had some secret and wanted to play behind the older brother's back. There was a hidden meaning in his words. Shen Miao looked at the flowers in the garden. It was already the 12th month of the winter, and the previously flourishing flowers had long withered. The branches were bare and there was nothing left, only the heavy snow on the branches, giving off a cold and desolate feeling. She said, "Then why did second older brother follow out? To peep at my secret?" Chapter 225. I actually have the intention to peep, Shen Yuan said. It is just that younger sister hides it too tightly that older brother is also helpless. It's just that I feel that you and I can be considered siblings, so if there's a chance, I should give you a few words of advice. Shen Miao turned her head and stared at him without blinking. One would like to hear the details. Actually, when I returned to the capital this time, I discovered that fifth sister had changed quite a bit. It was as if she had become another person. Maybe it was because fifth sister had grown up, or maybe it was because she had someone to teach her. But I, your second brother, have walked more roads than fifth sister, so I can see some things more clearly than you. He paused and slightly looked towards the wedding hall. Over there, the sounds of people toasting, thanking, and flattering could be heard even from far away. Shen Yuan said, "Qing is getting married today. Does fifth younger sister feel happy? To be honest, it's very satisfying." Shen Miao smiled. A stern look flashed in Shen Yuan's eyes before he smiled. Fifth younger sister really doesn't know how to restrain herself. The enmity between you and Qing has already reached the point of no rest until one party is dead. Now that you have sent Qing to the prince's residence, you think that this is victory. So fifth younger sister is after all still a child. He touched Shen Miao's head as if he was really an intimate elder brother, but Qing had entered Prince Yu's residence, so there might be a chance to turn things around. After enduring this period of time, it is hard to say what will happen to Qing in the future, but for fifth younger sister, one fear that every step will be difficult. Shen Miao did not speak and only heard Shen Yuan speaking again. If I was fifth younger sister, I would not have given Qing a chance and would have eliminated the opponent early on and take her life. The so-called acting out of spite and the so-called making the other party suffer more pain, it was only to increase one's future troubles. He looked at Shen Miao and smiled warmly. One think that you are still young and do not understand the logic of tolerating evil. If it's an opponent, it's best to take his life. Shen Miao quietly looked at Shen Yuan in front of her and her heart was slightly moved. Shen Yuan was indeed the smartest person in the second household. He did not look at the process and only looked at the results. If someone offended him, he would use the simplest method to take their life. His methods were ruthless and direct, but there were no repercussions. Such a person was calm and rational, and would not be affected by external factors. It was impossible to deal with such a person by infuriating him. She smiled and said, "Second brother is right. After all, I'm still young. I'm not as cold as second brother." When such sarcastic words fell into Shen Yuan's ears, Shen Yuan smiled without a care, but following that, he heard Shen Miao's faint voice sounding, "Even though I am not as cold as second older brother, but there is one point that I and second older brother are the same. I also do not like to leave behind future troubles. Do you think that if big sister marries into the prince's mansion, will she be able to turn things around?" Shen Yu stared at her. "You think not?" "Would I?" Shen Miao asked. She had always been calm and obedient when she spoke. However, this question of "will you?" was filled with dense provocation and ridicule. That kind of arrogant ridicule caused the usually emotionless Shen Yuan's pupils to suddenly shrink. After Shen Miao finished speaking, she chuckled and no longer looked at Shen Yuan before turning around to leave the garden and walked back to the wedding hall. Would Shenqing be able to turn things around or not? Her lips slightly hooked up, and that kind of joy that came from the heart made Mo Qing, who was following behind, surprised for a moment. After following beside Shen Miao for so long, Mo Qing gradually became clear. He had seen Shen Miao's ruthlessness, and most of the time, it was Shen Miao who was calmly giving orders. She would occasionally smile, but even that smile seemed to have a touch of majesty. However, at this moment, her eyebrows were curved as if she was extremely happy, but one did not know what matter could make her so happy. Mo Qing looked at Shen Yuan, who was still in the garden, and his heart was puzzled. Shen Miao was able to be this happy after speaking a few words to Shen Yuan. Chapter 226. No matter how grand the banquet was, there would eventually be a time for it to disperse. When the wine was hot, the guests left in twos and threes, and Shen Miao also stepped onto the horse back to the residence. On the horse, Luo Shuiyan remained silent. One did not know what she thought of as she held Shen Miao's hands and asked, "Zhao Zhao, what kind of man do you admire?" It was somewhat out of line for a mother to ask an unmarried daughter. But most likely it was Shen Qing's marriage today that touched Luo Shuiyan's heart. She had been out on expeditions all year round, and now that she thought about it, she did not know what Shen Miao was thinking in her heart. She only knew that Shen Miao had once admired Prince Ding, and Luo Shuiyan had seen Prince Ding before. He was indeed a dragon and phoenix among men and had elegance. It was just that such a person's mind would not be short, so how much could he see about emotional matters? To marry such a person, one might not be able to obtain happiness. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment before looking at Luo Shuiyan with a smile. "What kind of person does mother wish for me to marry?" Luo Shuiyan did not think that Shen Miao would ask her back, and for a moment ignored the fact that when Shen Miao faced this question, there was no trace of shyness, and it was as if she was asking a simple question. Luo Shuiyan thought about it before saying, "Mother hopes that you can marry a person of upright character. It is best that his official position is not too high, wealth is not too much, ambition is not too strong, and the residence should not be too complicated. Power and wealth, mother and your father will give it to you. If one's ambition is small, then they will truly love you. The residence is simple, and after you marry over, you will be able to live a quiet life. In short, one must sincerely respect and love you." Shen Miao's eyes drooped down as she smiled. Luo Shuiyan and Shen Xian's hope did not seem to have changed. They hoped that Shen Miao could marry an ordinary person, and the most request was nothing more than to love and love her. Unfortunately, her heart was blinded by lard in her previous life. There were thousands of males in the world, but she chose the one that did not love her the most. But Luo Shuiyan also smiled as she spoke. "Mother knows that young ladies like you all would not love this kind of person the most. Most likely what you all like are those people that can be seen in a crowd. When mother was at your age, she also loved those young and handsome heroes, but after marrying your father, Mother did not regret it. As such, I will listen to Mother, Shun Miao softly said. Luo Shuiyin was stunned. What? Shun Miao looked at her and said word by word. Isn't it Mother's hope to marry an ordinary person who can love and respect me? In this way, when I'm of marriageable age in the future, I'll marry someone like him. Luo Shuiyin held Shun Miao's hand and her heart suddenly felt strange. The young girl in front of him had an obedient appearance and a docile temperament. She was a completely different person from the rebellious and willful past. Whatever she said, Shun Miao would agree to it. One should be very happy to have such an obedient daughter, but one did not know why Luo Shuiyin was not happy at all. It was as if the face in front of him should not have such a docile expression. She should be a little more arrogant, a little more rebellious, a little more lively, and not so submissive and calm as she was now. It made people feel inexplicably sad. Luo Shuiyin pulled Shun Miao into her embrace and whispered, "Even so at your age, it is not too much to like any kind of person. Mother knows that anyone who can be placed in our Jiao Jiao's heart must be a good person. Our Jiao Jiao is so good, so he will definitely love and respect Jiao Jiao. If Jiao Jiao likes him, even if he is not an ordinary person, as long as he treats Jiao Jiao well, Mother will not stop you." Shun Miao buried her head in Luo Shuiyin's embrace and her voice was so soft that it could not be heard, thanking Mother. Oh. Chapter 227. On the night of the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, it started to snow again. Originally at the end of the year, the weather would gradually clear up and the sun would shine for a few days in a row. Who knew that on this night, there would be a rare snowstorm? There was not a single pedestrian on the streets of the Ding capital, and the doors of the merchants were tightly shut. One could only see the biting cold northern wind blowing large pieces of coarse snowflakes in the air. In front of Prince Yu residence in the Ding capital, the red lanterns that were hung were swaying from the wind and the colorful fireworks that were set off at the entrance had long been covered by the snowflakes. As for the two bright red happiness words that were pasted at the entrance, half of it was torn away by the wind and the remaining half was full of potholes, looking somewhat strange. The two guards that were guarding outside also drank the wedding wine today, and were somewhat drunk. One of them was holding a wine gourd in his hand and smiled. Did not think that there would be a day where another Wangfei would come to our prince residence. That year I did not think that there would be someone who would marry their daughter in. Hey, you are not talking nonsense. What is called marrying in? It is clearly being sold in. So what if it is a Wangfei? The person who spoke looked inside and shook his head. One do not know how long she can live. Perhaps both of us can benefit from it. The former chuckled and his words were filled with malice. That is pregnant with His Highness Prince of First Rank's child. If you do not want to live, then go. The other person said. There was a chi sound that was somewhat vague in the snowstorm. The person who was holding the wine gourd asked. Just now there seemed to be a sound. Did you hear it? What sound? The latter waved his hands in a drunken state. The sound of the wind. Do not be alarmed. Today is Prince Yu's joyous occasion. It is best that nothing goes wrong. That person's drunkenness was slightly awakened and he stood up straight. He turned his head to look at his side but did not see anything. Worry blindly. The other guard laughed at him. What place is this? Prince Yu residence. Whoever dares to come here and behave atrociously must be tired of living. Do not think too much. Oh. He felt something dripping onto his face and wiped it. Why is this snow hot? When he opened his hands, he could see clearly from the fire at the side. How was it snow? It was clearly blood. Warm blood. That person was startled and quickly looked up to see a guard's body on the eaves staring at him with wide eyes as blood dripped down from his throat. Come. He had just opened his mouth when he saw a flash of silver light in front. He only felt a warm thing spurting out from his throat and his body lost its strength as he softly fell. When he fell to the ground, he saw his companion, who had just been talking to him, lying on the snowy ground. His chest was bright red, leaving a shocking trail in the snow. Another 10 of people jumped down from the eaves and they were all dressed in black with masks, almost blending into the night. Another 2 people jumped out from the other side and dragged the 2 corpses in front of the door away. A moment later, a new guard was standing in front of the door, perfectly fine. Year of the year of year, the year of year after of year of black, the leader of made a year. In Prince Yu residence in His Highness Prince Yu's bedroom, Shen Qing sat by the bedside and her body was shivering. Prince Yu was lying on the soft couch and beside him were two beautiful maids who were tenderly and timidly massaging his legs and feeding him. From time to time they would say some words that made one's ears red and heart palpitate. Shen Qing bit her lower lip hard and there was an indescribable sense of shame in her heart. She was originally a daughter of a noble family, and should be married to His Highness Prince Ding. Who knew that now she had fallen into the hands of Prince Yu? Now that she was the official wife, she was going to be humiliated by these lowly women who came out of nowhere. Seeing such a shameless and licentious scene, Shen Qing's heart was filled with fear and anger, but she also thoroughly hated Shen Miao. Chapter 228. You should be glad that you are pregnant with this prince's child. Prince Yu noticed her expression and his face sunk, otherwise you would not be able to pass through so easily today. He appreciated Shen Qing's somewhat fearful gaze, but his mind thought of another pair of clear and calm eyes and a sudden rage surged in his heart. Prince Yu looked at Shen Qing and slowly said, however, after you give birth to this prince's child, this prince will not treat you badly. There are many guards in this prince's residence and these guards went through fire and water for this prince. Since you are this prince's wife, you should also help this prince to comfort them. Shen Qing's mind buzzed and she almost fainted. The horror in Prince Yu's words made her think of the future, and she did not even have the courage to live on. Oh, this prince will definitely treat you well. The gentler Prince Yu's tone was, the more fanatical his eyes were. Even the two maids in front of him were trembling. Tremble for what? Prince Yu suddenly frowned unhappily and was about to speak when the maid on the left suddenly staggered and fell onto Prince Yu's body. A pair of jade arms just happened to hug Prince Yu's head in her arms. Before Prince Yu could react, the other maid suddenly pulled out a hairpin from her head and pierced it into Prince Yu's throat. Prince Yu of the first rank screamed, but he was not someone to be trifled with. With a hong sound, the two maids were thrown onto the ground by him. He also had martial arts skills and this move was very ruthless. The two maids struggled on the ground for a few times and were no longer breathing. Shen Qing, who was at the side, was already dumbstruck and hid under the table in a panic. Prince Yu pulled out the hairpin from his throat. Even though the hairpin was not deeply inserted, there was still a lot of blood. Prince Yu of the first rank scolded and shouted loudly, "Guards! Guards!" A guard quickly answered and came in. Prince Yu kicked the two corpses on the ground. What plaything is this? Check who it is. Yes. That guard bowed his head and when Prince Yu turned his head back, he heard a chi sound. He lowered his head and saw a silver knife with blood stains on his chest. Passed right through his chest. Just now the guard pulled out his sword and Prince Yu's body was unsteady. He seemed to want to call for help but after a few steps, he fell down with a dong sound. The tip of the saber shone brightly, reflecting the large bloodstains. His technique was extremely skillful, as if he was slaughtering a pig or sheep, killing with a single slash without any unnecessary movements. The guard glanced at Prince Yu's corpse and then looked at Shen Qing who was hiding under the table shivering. You are Shen Qing? Yes, warrior. Are you sent by second brother to save me? Shen Qing's eyes lit up as she looked at the other party. The guard didn't say anything and turned around to leave. Shen Qing had some doubts in her heart and wanted to go out but after thinking about it, she was finally afraid of facing Prince Yu's corpse in the room. She took some gold and silver from the table and wrapped it in a cloth and was about to leave. As soon as he opened the door he almost tripped. Under the dim light of the lantern, the corpses of the guards lying in front of the door were especially shocking. Ah! Shen Qing cried out in alarm and looked outside. In the darkness, there seemed to be a solemn figure quickly passing through and the heavy sound of falling to the ground sounded. Every sound made one's heart turn colder. The residence of Prince Yu was like a gloomy hell. The snowstorm made one unable to see the situation outside but the thick smell of blood was like a big net, firmly covering one's head. It seemed that even the snow had turned into a scarlet red. Western garden of the Shun residence. Bai Lu closed the windows again and said, the snowstorm outside is really big. The windows have been blown open several times. It is quite scary. Exactly. Shuangjiang smiled. Heard from the elders that this kind of weather is the heavens wanting to punish those sinners. It seems that this time the sinner must have committed a very big mistake. Such a big snowstorm had not been encountered for many years. What is young lady looking at? Jingzhe asked. Are you still thinking about the wedding banquet? Ever since returning to the residence in the evening, Shun Miao had been sitting in front of the table. One did not know what she was thinking about as she sat there until the sky turned dark. One did not know why, but Jingzhe felt that Shun Miao seemed to be waiting for something. What was she waiting for? Shun Miao shook her head. Continue watching. Watch. Gu Yu and Jingzhe looked at each other in dismay. It was pitch black outside and nothing could be seen clearly. What could Shun Miao see? Shun Miao's eyes drooped down. The lights in the room were tranquil and the snowstorm was killing outside. In one night, how many people died in the Yellow Springs? Xin Yuan was right. She never left a way out for herself, so she would not leave a way out for others. Slender fingers unhurriedly tapped on the edge of the table, as if it was a melodious rhythm that made one think of the strange ballad sung by the sinful women in the cold palace. What ballad was being sung? It was sung that good and evil would eventually be repaid, and the heavenly way would reincarnate. Chapter 229. The snowstorm that was hard to encounter in decades in the Ding capital abruptly stopped on the morning of the second day. The thick snow was up to one's knees, and in this kind of cold weather, even the most diligent peddlers would rather stay at the warm Kong in their houses and not brave the cold wind to set up their stalls. On the other hand, the old man who sounded the night watch missed the hour. He hurriedly got up with the gong. The sun had not risen yet, and the sky was not bright. He tightened his tattered jacket and walked in the snow, his feet shallow and deep. Unhurriedly, he passed by the main door of Prince Yu residence. The main door of Prince Yu residence was slightly opened, and there was only half of the happiness character at the door. The old man who sounded the night watch saw that there was not even a single guard and muttered in his heart. The people in Prince Yu residence were extremely fierce, and one must know that the old man who sounded the night watch had been berated by the guards at the door, but today he did not see it, and for a moment he felt strange. When he saw the remaining half of the happiness character, he was suddenly enlightened. Yesterday was the day that Prince Yu residence welcomed the Wangfei, and it was assumed that these guards and servants had also eaten and drank till they were drunk so they could not see anyone. Thinking of that young lady who married into the prince's residence with an uncertain future, the old man shook his head and was about to walk past the main door of Prince Yu residence. Coincidentally, a trace of cold wind blew past, and that heavy door made a creak sound, and the black gap seemed to be bigger. The old man could not help but be surprised for a moment. The door creaked and swayed slightly, and one did not know why, but a strange feeling suddenly welled up in the old man's heart. He did not know where this feeling came from and stood at the door for a long time until a hawker saw him and greeted, "Old Fourthly, why are you standing at the door?" The old man's heart jumped fiercely and suddenly understood what was going on with that strange feeling. In broad daylight, no matter how fierce the ruckus was yesterday, why was there no sound at all in this residence? Even if people were drunk and asleep, there would still be dogs and birds, but there was nothing at all. It was as lifeless as a tomb. His hands were trembling, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps forward. As soon as he reached the crack of the pitch-black door, a strong fishy smell hit him in the face, almost causing him to stagger. The old man who sounded the night watch pushed the door, but it did not budge. He looked down and saw that there was a square of ice and snow stuck in the dark crack of the door. It was probably because the snow from last night had accumulated into a block and was stuck at the door. The old man who sounded the night watch widened his eyes and took 2 steps back. Suddenly, he let out a blood-curdling scream, causing the people on both sides of the street to look in his direction. With the first ray of morning light, the piece of crystal-clear ice and snow appeared exceptionally clear. The thick blood had condensed into a thick blood clot. From the crack of the door, an ice river snaked out, but just as it was about to rush out of the mansion, it suddenly stopped. It was as if a person who had been chased to the end of the road was struggling to survive, but was cut off by a door. It was like flowing blood. In the Ding capital, the entire household of Prince Yu's residence was exterminated on the day of the Wangfei's wedding. From top to bottom, servants, concubines, cats, dogs, chickens and ducks were not spared. The person who did it seemed to have a blood feud with Prince Yu's residence. and actually slaughtered them cleanly. The method was clean and neat, and all were killed with one knife. There was not a single gold, silver, or jewelry missing in the house, so obviously it was not for wealth. Thinking that Prince Yu was a cruel and vicious person and had done many evil deeds, so he had made many enemies. Who knew who the person who did it was? But the person who did it was too daring. To go against Prince Yu's residence was the same as going against the heavenly family of Ming-Chi. Everyone knew that Emperor Wenhui valued Prince Yu the most. Prince Yu was able to have no fear in the capital for so many years, and even the princes were afraid of him, all because he had Emperor Wenhui behind him. Chapter 230. But this time it was out of everyone's expectations. Emperor Wenhui actually did not give any order to arrest the murderer, and there was not even a reward. He only instructed the officials to investigate the matter, and handed the matter over to the Ding capital's administrator. The Ding capital's administrator was still able to handle matters, but as for investigating a case, it was just sloppy. Emperor Wenhui's action was obviously because he did not want to waste too much energy on the extermination of Prince Yu's household. Some intelligent people could see the knack of it. Most probably Prince Yu had done something to make Emperor Wenhui angry, otherwise why would Emperor Wenhui be so cold? Perhaps Emperor Wenhui was still feeling happy that the murderer had helped him to deal with the big trouble in his heart. But guesses were just guesses and rumors were just rumors. With the passing of word of mouth, some deviated further from the truth while some were infinitely close to the truth. In the extermination of Prince Yu's household, there was one person who survived. This person was not someone else but Prince Yu's consort Shen Qing, who married into Prince Yu's residence yesterday. In the early morning, the old man who sounded the night watch was the first to discover that something was wrong in Prince Yu's residence. At that time there were many pedestrians on the streets, and those who were braver rushed into Prince Yu's residence. As for the scene that they saw after rushing into the residence, even if it was just a description of the rumors, one would feel creepy. According to the people who saw it, in the huge residence of Prince Yu, it was densely packed with frozen corpses and blood clots. The blood flowed all over the courtyard, and last night's snowstorm quickly froze it, making the entire ground look like red ice. The corpses were all weathered and frosted and were as hard as sculptures. Everywhere they went, there was a deathly atmosphere and no one survived. And Prince Yu's corpse was in his bedroom. There was a knife wound through his chest and there were two maids by his side. Shen Qing fell at the door of the bedroom and the gold and silver beside her were scattered all over the floor. At first everyone thought that she was also killed, but the movement woke her up. Thus Shen Qing became the only survivor in the entire Prince Yu's residence. To Shen Qing this might be a good thing, but it seemed worse than death. The entire Prince Yu's household was exterminated. But why was Shen Qing left alone? If it was said that Shen Qing was innocent and had nothing to do with the residence, but the person who did it did not even let off the servants and concubines. Obviously they were not soft-hearted. Moreover, Shen Qing had fainted to the side with gold and silver ornaments scattered all over the ground, making it seem as if she was trying to escape. The most important thing was that other than the stab wound on Prince Yu's chest, there were traces of a woman's hairpin piercing his neck. Chan Qing, who had just married into the prince's mansion, was the most suspicious. The numerous suspicious points made Shen Qing become the target of public criticism. Even if she had 9 mouths, she wouldn't be able to clear her name. There was no other way. Who asked the entire Prince Yu residence to die, but she was still alive? The capital governor's men naturally wanted to capture Shen Qing and bring her back for interrogation. Regardless of whether Shen Qing had anything to do with this matter or not, she would be the only witness alive. If he wanted to find some clues, even if it was just for show, Shen Qing would definitely not be able to get away easily. When the Shen family received the news, the officials had already arrived at Prince Yu residence to arrest people. When Ren Wanyun learned of the matter, she fainted on the spot, and it was Shang Gui and Shen Yuan who quickly packed up their itinerary and headed out. Yuan, where do we go now? When Shen Gui faced his own son, he was still somewhat undecided. He knew that no matter if it was true or not, Shen Qing was already involved in this matter. Even though Emperor Wenhui did not show any anger towards this matter, but accompanying a monarch was like accompanying a tiger. Who knew what Emperor Wenhui's real thoughts were? If in the future this matter was used to vent his anger on him, It would be detrimental to his career. Shen Yuan coldly said, "Go and find the capital governor. It is too late to go to the residence of the prince now. Younger sister was captured and the capital governor would definitely know a lot of inside information." After a pause, he swept a glance at Shungui. "Father need not worry. It will not be blamed on father." Chapter 231. Shungui heard Shen Yuan's sarcasm and felt slightly annoyed, but it was not good to say anything. He could only pretend that he did not hear Shen Yuan's meaning and said, "Since it is so, quickly leave." On the other side, Luo Shuiyan and Shen Xian were also preparing to set off. Qiu make a trip to the prince's mansion. Right now, Lao Er had gone to the patrol office, while Lao San had entered the palace to gather information. Someone had to pay attention to the prince's residence. "Your father and I will go to the palace first. This matter is very important. If spies sneak into the city, it will be bad." Luo Shuiyan instructed Shen Qiu, "Go and negotiate with the prince's residence and investigate the people of my Shen family that died. Return and send money as compensation." "Don't worry, mother. Leave it to me." Shen Qiu readily agreed. After Shen Xian and wife left, Shen Qiu tidied up his clothes and prepared to go out, but suddenly he heard Shen Miao's voice from behind, "Eldest brother? Younger sister?" Shen Qiu was surprised and turned around to ask, "Younger sister is not staying in the house but coming out for?" "Eldest brother is going to the residence of the prince of first rank?" Shen Miao asked. "That's right," Shen Xian replied. "I still have some matters to attend to. I'll be back soon after I'm done with them." Shen Miao looked at him and said, "Eldest brother, bring me along." Shen Xian was startled for a moment before shaking his head and said seriously, "Younger sister, I know that you have a deep grudge with Prince Yu residence, and now that Prince Yu residence has fallen into such a state, honestly speaking, I also feel that they only have themselves to blame. If you want to personally see their end, eldest brother will do it for you, and it is not worthwhile to personally make a trip over." Shen Miao smiled. "I just want to take a look. There's really nothing to see." Shen Qiu deliberately scared her. "I heard that those people died miserably last night. All of them were cut open and the blood had accumulated a few feet. I'm afraid he died a wrong death. And his soul is still in the mansion. If a little girl like you goes, you'll see a ghost." Even though everyone in Prince Yu residence died miserably, it was not as horrifying as what Shen Qiu said. Shen Qiu also wanted to scare Shen Miao, as he really did not wish for Shen Miao to see those bloody scenes. How could a pampered lady of an official's family see a scene of death? However, after he said those words, Shen Miao, who was opposite him, still did not have any expression. It was as if he was talking about an ordinary scene. Shen Miao even laughed. As a daughter of a military family, if one were to be frightened by a mere ghost, wouldn't one be looked down upon by others? Could it be that Big Brother is also afraid of seeing dead people on the battlefield? Of course not. Shen Qiu immediately said, but when the words came out, he knew that he had said the wrong thing and saw Shen Miao looking at him calmly. Since that is the case, there is nothing to be afraid of. "Eldest brother, bring me along." "No. Younger sister, why did you go to Prince Yu residence?" Shen Xian said awkwardly. "There is really nothing there. I'm just going to take a look. Big brother, you don't have to worry about me. It's just like you said, there are government officials guarding outside, so there won't be any danger. There won't be any trouble if you bring me along." Shen Miao said every word extremely firmly. Shen Qiu discovered from Shen Miao's recent few matters that Shen Miao had her own ideas and her temper was very stubborn. Once she had decided on something, even 10 bulls would not be able to pull her back. Even if he did not let her go today, one day she would still secretly go behind his back. It was better to have him as a companion today, as it would be safer. "All right." Shen Qiu stared at her. "Do not wander around after reaching the prince residence. I will let Emoqing follow you. If there is anything wrong, immediately shout for me." Shen Miao smiled. "All right." In just one night, Prince Yu residence seemed to have changed its face. The inside and outside had changed into two different things. Yesterday it was still filled with guests and laughter. One could even see the endless stream of horses and carriages in front of the door, and the guests talking and laughing. Now the vermilion door was covered with white seals and the guards at the door had a dignified expression, fearing that there would suddenly be some vicious means. Chapter 232. The half of the happiness word that was pasted on the door was swaying in the wind and seemed to finally be unable to withstand the ravaging of the cold wind. The remaining half also fell off the door and slowly floated to the ground and was stepped into a snow pit by the guards, making nothing visible. In front of Prince Yu residence's doors, there would occasionally be commoners pointing, and even though the discussions were filled with sighs, there was also a faint sense of pleasure. In these years, Prince Yu's evil deeds were known by everyone, and it was probably the happiest thing in the world to see the evildoers suffering the consequences. When Shun Qiu and entourage rushed to Prince Yu residence, they saw such a scene. Thinking of the festive atmosphere yesterday and the deathly stillness today, there was a sharp contrast that made one feel dazed for a moment. Even Shun Qiu, who was used to seeing life and death, could not help but be moved. After all, not a single person in the entire residence was left, and it was really too tragic. Shun Qiu's soldiers explained their intentions to the officials at the entrance of Prince Yu residence, and the officers let them in. The group of people followed Shun Qiu in, and when they entered, they were shocked by the scene in front of them that they could not speak. The corpses of the servants in the residence had been dragged away, but the bloodstains from last night were still there. The bloodstains had turned into ice and looked very scary at one glance, as if the entire residence was scarlet red. Even after a night of snow, it was unable to cover up the thick smell of blood. Through the scarlet red ground, it was as if one could see the tragic massacre in yesterday's snowy night, and one could even hear the cries of despair in the dark night. The soldiers were somewhat frightened, and Shun Qiu also frowned tightly. He suddenly remembered that Shan Miao was beside him and feared that she would be frightened, so he quickly looked at Shan Miao, intending to comfort her. But when he turned his head to look, Shun Miao's eyes were calm and she was even more unperturbed than the soldiers beside him. Shun Miao looked down at the scarlet ground. What did this count as? The blood of the enemy would only make one feel excited. In the previous lifetime, the entire Shun family's blood must have been much more tragic than this. She was not moved, had no sympathy, no sorrow, and could not wait to laugh out loud and then hack a few more times at Prince Yu's body. Sister, Shun Qiu asked hesitantly, I'm going to investigate. Do you want to go in and rest? Shun Miao looked towards the southwest corner of Prince Yu residence and smiled gently. Yesterday when I came over, I heard that the maids of the prince residence said that there was a tea room for rest, so I went there to take a seat. How about you come to the tea room to look for me after you're done? Over there. Shun Qiu followed Shun Miao's gaze and looked over. In the southwest corner, the trees were lush and luxuriant and were trimmed very delicately. It seemed that Prince Yu specially renovated it to enjoy the flowers. He nodded his head. Let Emoqing follow you in and do not run around. Shun Miao complied and walked with Emoqing towards the southwest corner. Today she was afraid that the few maids by her side would be scared by the blood of Prince Yu residence, so Shun Miao did not bring along a single personal maid. Emoqing was a guard and naturally would not be afraid of these. Emoqing followed behind Shun Miao, and was somewhat surprised to find that Shun Miao seemed to be very familiar with this place. Where were the corners, where were the corridors, where were the stairs? She knew everything clearly. Even if she came here yesterday, even if she really came here once, it would seem that she was too familiar with it. With this question in mind, Shun Miao had already arrived in front of the tea room. The tea room was hidden behind the flowers and there were grapevines on the shelves outside. It was assumed that when the grapes bear fruit in the summer, it was extremely elegant to drink wine and enjoy the fruits, enjoy the flowers and chat. But when this elegance was used on Prince Yu, it made one feel a little strange. You wait for me outside, Shun Miao said to Emoqing. I will go in alone. Emoqing was somewhat hesitant. Shun Miao glanced at him and said, It is only a tea room. If you are not assured, then follow me in to investigate. Chapter 233. Emoqing immediately cupped his hands, yes. Finishing, he took the lead to walk in with his sword. Shun Miao looked at Emoqing's back view and was in a trance for a moment. In the past and present life, no matter what identity, Emoqing seemed to be this cautious and loyal. The tea room was very big and was divided into 3 levels by a screen. Each level was extremely extravagant and different from the elegance outside, It was more like the style of the palace. Emoching carefully checked and confirmed that there were no assassins hidden inside before cupping his hands towards Shan Miao. Young lady can just call Emoching if there is anything. Emoching will guard outside. Finishing, he walked out. After Emoching left, Shan Miao walked to the table in front of the tea room. On the table there was a blue and white tea set with a good glaze. It seemed that she had seen it before in the palace. Shan Miao swept a glance and walked past it. She walked past the first screen and the second screen and came to the third level of the tea room. On the third level of the tea room, the walls were filled with paintings and calligraphy. Looking carefully, there was no lack of famous inscriptions on the paintings, and this room that was filled with paintings and calligraphy would be worth 1,000 gold. Shan Miao looked at the paintings one by one as if she was appreciating them, but when she walked in front of a painting, her footsteps stopped. That was a painting of a night banquet, and it was from the hands of the great calligrapher Lu Yuan of the previous dynasty. The painting recorded the grand occasion of the night banquet in the residence of the officials of the previous dynasty. The maids were beautiful, the wine and food were delicious, and the guests were happy. The characters were lifelike and the brushstrokes were all exquisite and the colors were bright. In the wall full of paintings, it did not seem outstanding, but Shan Miao looked at it in a trance, as if she was attracted by the scene in the painting. She stared at the painting of the night banquet for a long time, and after a moment, she finally reached out her hand and slowly touched the painting. She touched it very carefully until she touched the main character of the night banquet, the lapel of the pot-bellied official. The lapel was also very exquisite, and even if it was a painting, when one touched it, one could feel the buttons of the lapel. In fact, Shan Miao did feel it. The slightly protruding feeling of her fingertips was different from the rough feeling of the paper. When Shan Miao pressed down, there was a slight caw sound. Accompanied by a slight sound, the wall in front of him that was full of paintings and calligraphy suddenly split in half. It was actually something that looked like a secret room. Looking from the outside, he could only see a long corridor that was lit up by torches, making it look exceptionally bright. Shan Miao heaved a sigh of relief. Without hesitation, she lifted her skirt and walked in. In the innermost part of the secret chamber was a coffin. The lid of the coffin had already been opened, revealing the contents inside. It was empty, and there were two people standing in front of the coffin. One was dressed in purple while the other was dressed in snow white. They were Xie Jingxing and Gao Yang. Xie Jingxing held a bright yellow cloth bag in his hand. It was unknown what was in the bag, but it looked heavy. Gao Yang smiled. "Prince Yu, that old dog actually hid the thing here. If it was not for the Chun family's massacre last night, one feared that we would have to go through a lot of trouble to find this thing. So one only need to wait to pick up the scraps," Xie Jingxing said. "Then look around to see if there is anything else." Gao Yang answered and looked around at the same time. "Speaking of which, that old dog, you did not even leave a guard here. This place must be very secretive, and one fear that other than him, no one else would know about it. The Fu family are overly suspicious," Xie Jingxing lazily said. "If it was you, would you not hide it?" "Naturally I would hide it." Gao Yang gently waved his fan and smiled in an extremely cultured and refined manner, but the words that came out of his mouth were very scary. "If I was that old dog, if someone found this place, no matter who it was, even if they did not know the secret, as long as they found out about this secret chamber, one fear that they would kill to silence them. Only dead people can keep secrets. That old dog, you did this very well." Chapter 234. Xie Jingxing was too lazy to care about him and looked around for other things. At the same time, Shan Miao was holding a torch and quietly walking in the dark secret passage. Compared to her usual slow pace, this time she was walking in a much more urgent manner. There was no other reason other than she did not know when Shunqiu would come over, and before Shunqiu came over, she had to get that thing. This secret chamber of Prince Yu residence was discovered by Fu Xiuyi in the beginning. She had inadvertently overheard the conversation between Fu Xiuyi and Pei Lang. At that time, Pei Lang copied a picture of Lu Yuan's night banquet and told Fu Xiuyi that the mechanism of the secret chamber of Prince Yu residence was on the lapel of the main character of the night banquet. At that time, Pei Lang also said, "The thing is in the secret chamber and your majesty can explore it." Shan Miao did not know what the thing was, but at that time, listening to Pei Lang and Fu Xiuyi's tone, That thing should be very important to Fu Xiuyi. When Shen Miao talked to the Chun brothers about exterminating the entire family, other than not leaving any future troubles, it was also because of this matter. If the entire family was not exterminated and the people of Prince Yu residence remained, perhaps someone would know the secret of the secret chamber, and if they discovered her actions, one feared that it would cause a disaster. Now that the people of Prince Yu residence were all dead, presumably this secret had not been discovered yet. After all, in the previous lifetime when Fu Xiuyi knew of this matter, he had already ascended to the throne. As long as that thing was very important to Fu Xiuyi or was beneficial to him, then Fu Xiuyi must not obtain it. Either destroy it or send it to the hands of Fu Xiuyi's enemies. At least with this thing, in the future when dealing with Fu Xiuyi there would be one more bargaining chip. This was the reason why she followed Shan Qiu to the residence of Prince Yu today. Shen Miao caressed the walls of the secret chamber as she walked in. This secret chamber was winding endlessly, and was much longer than what she imagined. After turning another corner, the front suddenly opened up, as if from a narrow corridor into a spacious main hall. There were rows of torches hanging on the stone walls, illuminating the entire chamber. And in that chamber there was a coffin lying horizontally, and in front of the coffin, there were actually two people standing. Shen Miao had yet to move when she heard one of them shouting, "Who is it?" That voice was very familiar. She didn't even have time to distinguish it before she saw two figures suddenly turn around in the bright firelight, revealing two familiar faces. Xie Jingxing, Gao Yang. Why would Xie Jingxing come here? Gao Yang was not someone from the Imperial Physician Institute, so why would he be with Xie Jingxing? Even someone as calm as Shen Miao was also stunned. What followed was a moment of confusion in her mind. Those doubts from earlier circled and took root in his heart, but it was as if he had suddenly found an exit. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, it was as if something was about to break through the air. Shen Miao. Gao Yang's eyes were also filled with astonishment. He then looked at Xie Jingxing and said, "Do it." Shen Miao's eyes stared and only felt that the sky and earth were spinning. Before she could see clearly the figure that flashed past her, her body was heavily pushed and her back slammed into the stone wall behind her, causing her to suck in a breath of cold air in pain. Following that, a slender hand grasped her throat and Xie Jingxing's handsome face was right in front of her. Xie Jingxing almost pressed Shen Miao's entire body against the stone wall. His cold clothes touched Shen Miao's face and his hands were also icy cold. It was clearly a pair of eyes that were as dazzling as the scorching sun, and the curvature of his lips made one intoxicated, but his gaze was so sober that it was almost cold. Shen Miao cannot be left alive. Gao Yang quickly said, "This matter is of great importance. It is her misfortune that she died here today. Leave the corpse here and let's go out. No one will discover it. Third Xie, do not be soft-hearted. Do it." Shen Miao looked at Xie Jingxing. The hand that was holding her neck was slender and good-looking, but it was ferocious as it firmly clasped and did not loosen. The purple-clothed youth's eyes were even more profound under the light of the lantern. Every stroke of his was like a spirit walking out of a painting. The more beautiful he was, the more cruel his smile was. It was like a cat catching a mouse. However, what was revealed in his eyes was absolute indifference and killing intent. He really wanted to kill her. Shen Miao looked at him motionlessly. That pair of clear eyes was even brighter than the first snow in spring. There was no sadness or joy in it, as if it could reflect a person's life. Xie Jingxing's eyes moved slightly and his lips suddenly hooked up into a smile. His other hand gently covered Shen Miao's eyes. He bent his head slightly and moved closer to Shen Miao's ear, as if he was whispering to a lover. "Do not look at me. I will not be able to bear it." Chapter 235. Do not look at me. I will not be able to bear it. Time strangely stopped in that instant, and all things in heaven and earth seemed to have lost their voices. The entire room of lights was swaying, but it could not be compared to that person's eyes. It was clearly the most intimate appearance, like a lover's whispering ambiguity, but in a blink of an eye, it turned into a thick killing intent. Xie Jingxing's eyes hung down and there was a slight warmth under his palms. It was as if he could feel the eyelashes slightly blinking, like fluffy butterfly wings. With a flap it wanted to fly away but was caught and could not fly away. Gao Yang, go out, Xie Jingxing said. Gao Yang frowned. What do you mean? Go out first, Xie Jingxing said calmly. Gao Yang glanced at him and did not say anything before picking up the things that were wrapped up in the cloth and walked out. After his footsteps disappeared far away, Xie Jingxing slowly released his hands. He spread out his hands, and on his fair palms, there seemed to be sparkles flashing under the lights. Just now Shen Miao seemed to be crying. Xie Jingxing lazily said, "It is just death, what are you crying for?" He still wanted to say something, but when he saw the expression of the young female in front of him, he suddenly shut his mouth. Shen Miao's brows were delicate and pretty, but that little bit of childishness on her face was now covered by the coldness on her face. Her eyes were as clear as water, but there was no trace of tears or sadness at all. Most likely it was a trick just now, as she was not afraid at all. As Xie Jingxing's thoughts flashed, he saw Shen Miao suddenly raising her elbow to hit his chest. This move was ruthless and accurate. If it was another person, one feared that they would be knocked to the ground, but Xie Jingxing only swayed slightly and had already grabbed Shen Miao's left arm. Shen Miao was pulled by him and almost fell into Xie Jingxing's embrace. But one saw her quickly taking out something from her sleeves, and without hesitation, she stabbed at Xie Jingxing's arm. That hairpin was small, and if one did not pay attention, one would not be able to see it. Shen Miao's actions were vicious and did not show any mercy as the hairpin pierced into the latter's arm. Xie Jingxing's eyes darkened, and with a wave of his hand, Shen Miao was once again thrown to the front of the stone wall. Xie Jingxing's hand was on Shen Miao's fragile neck, and it seemed that as long as he exerted a little strength, her neck would be easily broken. His voice was slightly heavy, with an almost undetectable anger. He said, as expected of someone from the general's residence, "You've learned 100% of sneak attacks." Shen Miao's gaze landed on Xie Jingxing's arm, where half of the hairpin had fallen out and blood gradually flowed out and dyed his sleeves red as it stuck to his arm. Xie Jingxing followed Shen Miao's gaze and smiled indifferently. "It does not matter even if there is poison. I will definitely kill you before that." His eyes were extremely beautiful, and when he was casually looking at others, it was the most intoxicating. If that smile, yet not a smile, was seen by the young ladies in the Ding capital, there would be a debate. But Shen Miao could see the well-hidden indifference and coldness in it. What kind of person was Xie Jingxing? He seemed to be very complicated. The image of him in the Ding capital was that even though he had the ability, he was cynical and unruly. He was destined to be unable to be controlled by others, and was unable to display his fists and feet in his official career. But at this moment Shen Miao had doubts in her heart. Was the Xie Jingxing in the eyes of the common people the real Xie Jingxing? He was indeed unruly and fierce, but for such a person to hide so deeply, was he really not interested in power and politics? Xie Jingxing seemed to be dissatisfied with her being distracted as he leaned closer and stared at her. "Shen Miao, if I kill you today, there would be no one to protect the Shen family in the future." Shen Miao's gaze moved and saw Xie Jingxing in front of her laughing viciously. Shen Yuan has already returned to the capital, and with the second and third household of the Shen family joining hands, what are the chances of Shen Xian winning? His hand slowly tightened, and every sentence was directed at Shen Miao's fatal weakness. The Fu family is eyeing the Shen family covetously, and Shen Xian's future road will be difficult. The things that you seek and plan will be ruined in my hands today. If you want to take revenge, you will have to wait for the rest of your life. Chapter 236. The more ruthless he was, the more unbelievably handsome he looked. It was as if he could see through one's heart, as his words were all directed at Shen Miao's most worried matter. Shen Miao was reborn, and all she wanted was for the Shen family to be safe and sound. What she planned was nothing more than to take revenge, and if she were to die here, everything would come to an abrupt end. Xie Jingxing's eyes did not have a trace of sympathy or pity. He was truly cold and ruthless. No matter what her identity was, even if she was the imperial family's princess today, there would be no reason for her to retreat peacefully after breaking the relationship between Xie Jingxing and Gao Yang. This was the reason why she risked her life just now. Otherwise, with her cautious character, she would not use such a risky method until the last moment. Suddenly the smiling faces of Wan Yu and Fu Ming flashed past her eyes. Shun Miao's eyes widened and she did not even notice that 2 lines of tears were flowing down her cheeks. Too unwilling. If she were to die here, it would be too unwilling. Xie Jingxing saw her tears and narrowed his eyes as he looked at her. He did not forget Shun Miao's ruthless move just now. A female who used tears to gain sympathy would not work with him. But Shun Miao only stared and silently cried. There was no pitiful or weak expression in her eyes as her tears flowed woodenly, but it suddenly made one feel sad. It was as if before this, she had already experienced pain that ordinary people could not understand and was at the end of the road, giving birth to great sorrow. The great sorrow was silent, but the tears were loyal to the body and flowed down first. Xie Jingxing frowned as he looked at her, and the hand that was clutching Shun Miao's throat gradually loosened. However, Shun Miao did not notice it at all. Finally, Xie Jingxing put down his hand and his expression showed a little helplessness. His figure was tall, and when he pushed the little girl to the corner, it gave him a strange feeling, as if he was bullying a little child. Even though Xie Jingxing was well aware that Shun Miao and the word little child were not compatible, after a moment, he finally pulled out the hairpin from his arm. It was very painful to pull out the hairpin, and Xie Jingxing's brows slightly wrinkled as he played with the hairpin in his hands. Seeing Shun Miao staring at him, he suddenly felt an inexplicable awkwardness in his heart. He said, "Don't cry. I will not kill you." After a pause, he added, "Just to scare you." Shun Miao heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. She knew that Xie Jingxing was not trying to scare her. In that instant of killing intent, the other party really had the intention to kill. At the end, his heart softened and it was just a few drops of tears. As for what moved Xie Jingxing, Shun Miao was also not clear. Shen was Shun Miao. I once saw third uncle's copy of Lu Yuan's banquet at home. When I was searching around, I inadvertently discovered this secret room. I was curious and didn't expect to come across you. You Shun. Shun. Shun Miao lied without changing her expression. Yes? Little girl, I am not one of the Chun brothers. Don't use the method of killing with a borrowed knife on me. Xie Jingxing said lazily. Shun Miao was a bad person deep down in her bones, and even at this stage, she still wanted to scheme against Shun Wan. Today I did not see anything and did not hear anything. If you do not make things difficult for me, naturally I will not make things difficult for you. Shun Miao looked at him. Let us mind our own business. You can't make things difficult for me either. Xie Jingxing's arrogant tone made one's teeth itch with hatred. He said, "Today I will spare your life, but if this matter is leaked out even a little, then your Shun family cannot blame me for being unlucky." Shun Miao quickly replied, "I will not leak it out." Xie Jingxing was very satisfied with her temperament of knowing when to stop. He was silent for a moment before suddenly asking, "Shun Miao, do you have enmity with the Fu family?" Chapter 237. He said Fu family and not Tian family, and the meaning of his words was somewhat thought-provoking. Shun Miao turned her head and looked at him. Her heart was slightly moved, but she said lightly, "Little Marquis feel that it is so." Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows as expected. He looked at Shun Miao. "Since this matter is over, you should leave first. If you stay here for too long and attract other people over, I will not be able to save you." Shun Miao did not say a word and turned to leave. Today's face-to-face encounter with Xie Jingxing made her understand some things in a trance. At least this little Marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin, and was not as simple as he looked on the surface. This kind of person could not be used and could not be offended. If Xie Jingxing's enemy was also the imperial family of Mingqi, naturally she would end up well, but if not, one must not have any ideas on him. Shun Miao had just walked 2 steps when Xie Jingxing followed. His legs were long and he quickly caught up to Shun Miao and threw her a small medicine bottle. "Do not say that I bullied you and made you cry." Following that, he took big strides forward and left before Shun Miao. Under the dim light of the match, Shun Miao's face suddenly showed a little shame. Just now she also made a risky move. In the previous life, after she returned from the Qin country, when she was fighting for favor with Mei Furan, her temperament was extremely tough. She once heard other beauties offering advice. "Your ladyship is always solemn and solemn. Even though she is the mother of the world, His Majesty will not necessarily like her. Look at that May foreign, gentle and careful, and even know how to act spoiled. It is said that crying children will have sweets to eat. This world's love is also the same. Men have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex while females must be like water. But at that time she scoffed at this saying and felt that such actions could not be seen in public. How could the dignified Empress be confused with the flattering methods of those females? But just now, under Xie Jingxing's murderous intent, she suddenly remembered that beauty's words, crying children will have sweets to eat. Now she was still a budding young female and would be innocent and tender in her next life. Moreover, she did not have the phoenix robe of the Empress, so if she were to act spoiled, it would be seen. Even in Shen Miao's dreams, she would not have thought that with her tough temperament, she would cry like a pear blossom in the rain to a male. However, the ending surprised her. Xie Jingxing had such a fierce and unruly temperament, and he actually let her go. However, in this confrontation, she had used a very dishonorable method. After leaving the secret room, one did not know where Xie Jingxing and Gao Yang left from, as there was no one in the tea room. She walked out of the tea room and Imo Qing was still guarding outside. Shen Miao asked him, "Was there anyone who came out from inside just now?" "Person." Imo Qing was surprised. "Isn't there only young lady inside? Did Miss meet someone else inside?" "No." Shen Miao smiled gently and said, just casually asking, but in her heart, she had a higher opinion of Xie Jingxing's ability. Shun, Shun, Shao, Shun, Shun, Xian. Shen Imo Qing was somewhat puzzled as he did not know why Shen Miao changed her mind in a while. Just now she had clearly said to wait for Shan Qiu in the tea room, but now it was not the case. But naturally he would not refute Shen Miao's point of view, especially this kind of small matter. He silently agreed and followed Shen Miao out. When Shen Miao left, she looked back at the closed doors of the tea room and did not know if Xie Jingxing and Gao Yang were still there. Today she was here for that thing, but who knew that the thing had fallen into Xie Jingxing's hands? Shen Miao could not make any headway for a moment. According to the traces of the previous lifetime, Xie Jingxing should not have discovered the secret room at this time. Could it be that in this lifetime something had changed and even Xie Jingxing's fate had changed? Or could it be that in her previous lifetime, her short and tragic life, there were some neglected truths? Chapter 238. This question was not solved until she saw Shan Qiu and returned to the Shun residence in the evening. It was Shan Qiu who saw that Shan Miao was in a daze after coming out from the residence of the first prince, and thought that Shan Miao was frightened by the scene of blood all over the ground in the first prince residence. He instructed the kitchen to boil some tranquilizing soup, and was scolded by Luo Shuiyan for bringing Shan Miao to such an unlucky place. Shan Qiu felt wrong, but Shan Miao did not feel it at all. On the other side, there were also people who felt injustice for Xie Jingxing. That girl is too ruthless. Gao Yang stared at the wound in front of him dumbfounded. Xie Jingxing took off his outer robe and only wore a loose inner garment. The collar of his shirt was loose, revealing half of his strong and straight body. His sleeves were rolled up halfway, revealing his arm. The wound caused by the hairpin was so deep that the bone could be seen. Xie Jingxing allowed Gao Yang to apply medicine for him, as he played with the hairpin in his hands. The hairpin was an ordinary plain silver hairpin with a simple wavy pattern. However, the tip of the hairpin had been polished until it was incomparably sharp, comparable to a silver needle used as a hidden weapon. The tip of the hairpin was also bent like a barb. If such a hairpin were to pierce into a person's body, it would definitely tear off a large piece of flesh. For example, Xie Jingxing, there was a wound on his arm. Shen Xian's family is noble and virtuous, but that girl's actions are so vicious. She doesn't look like Shen Xian's daughter at all. Could it be that they got the wrong child? Gao Yang was still very surprised. Look at how she did not hold back when she used it. It has already entered into the flesh. He spread the powder evenly on the wound. Xie Jingxing frowned and sucked in a breath of cold air. Endure it even if it hurts. Gao Yang snapped, "Xie San, I've been with you for so many years, but I've never seen you take pity on women. What did you do today? She bumped into such a big thing and even hurt you, yet you let her go just like that." "I say," Gao Yang rubbed his chin. "Could it be that you really like her? She's still a little girl." She doesn't have anything she wants. Are you crazy? Xie Jingxing said impatiently. Enough. I am not that shameless to bully a young lady. You're speaking as if you've never bullied a little girl before. Gao Yang sneered. I really don't understand what you're thinking. He carefully wrapped the bandage around Xie Jingxing's arm and sighed after wrapping it up. Now that we have the item, what's next? Search again. Xie Jingxing said. The Fu family will find out sooner or later. Gao Yang frowned. Actually, what I find most strange is how did Shen Miao know about the secret room? If she was from the Fu family, you would have been exposed. She has enmity with the Fu family. Xie Jingxing said lazily. She can't wait to borrow my hands to kill. As for how I found it, it's probably a coincidence. A trace of sharpness flashed in his eyes. Shen Miao said that she accidentally found out about the secret chamber, but he did not believe this reason at all. Shen Miao was a person who did things with a purpose, and it could be seen from the matter of her dealing with Shan Qing and Prince Yu. Something that didn't seem to be of much use could play an unexpected role in the end. Xie Jingxing even had a conjecture that Shen Miao dealt with Prince Yu. Perhaps it was because of the thing in his hands. But how did she know? Even he and Gao Yang had just found out about it not long ago and spent a lot of energy on it. Shen Miao was only an unmarried daughter, and there were many inconveniences in investigating the news, but she was able to know the secret. The secrets on her body were no less than others. In short, it is better to be careful. Gao Yang stood up and picked up the remaining bandages and medicine before walking out of the room. Moreover, now that she has found out my identity, one do not know what kind of changes will happen in the future. Chapter 239. Xie Jingxing was left alone in the room. He pointed the hairpin in his hand at the flickering flame in the lamp and looked at it thoughtfully. After a moment, the scene of the young female's eyes widening and crying silently appeared in his mind. He was not one who had tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex and did not have any other thoughts towards Shen Miao. It was just that in that instant he inexplicably could not bear it. This kind of unbearable emotion finally broke his usual calm approach, and now thinking about it, he was somewhat regretful. The wound on his arm was somewhat numb and even more painful. When the other party attacked, she did not show any mercy at all, and if he did not dodge fast enough, the hairpin might have landed on his face. In fact, Shen Miao's tears were perhaps a kind of method. Xie Jingxing was well aware that that young female was incomparably cunning, and her mind was sensitive and intelligent. The method that she used when she was caught off guard had a wonderful ability. The sudden show of weakness was most likely because she wanted to survive. Xie Jingxing opened his hand and the silver hairpin flashed a small brilliance in his palm, but it made one think of the moment when this hand covered a pair of eyes, the fluttering feeling in his palm, like a fluttering butterfly that was about to dance in his palm. It was that moment of fragility that made his heart give birth to some strange feelings and sympathy that should not belong to him. Little poisonous woman. Xie Jingxing suddenly smiled. Under the lamp, the youth's handsome brows were oppressively eye-catching and the smile on his lips was playful as he muttered, "One should not be soft-hearted." In the eastern courtyard of the Shun residence, flowers were blooming at this moment. In Rongjingtang, old Shenforen's face was gloomy as she looked at Shen Gui and said, "So to say, there is no way for that Qing girl to come out?" Shen Gui shook his head. Prince Yu residence was exterminated in one night and only Qing'er was left. No matter what one said, one cannot escape responsibility and the case still has to be retried. Other than such a big matter, one do not know if His Majesty will blame us. Old Shenforen said worriedly, "What is going on with Qing'er, that girl? Is this matter really unrelated to her?" Her words were filled with suspicion towards Shen Qing. Ren Wanyun exploded when she heard it. She threw herself in front of old Shenforen and knelt down, scaring old Shenforen. Ren Wanyun cried, "Old Foreign, you have watched Qing'er grow up and you do not know what kind of temperament she has. How could she do such a thing? Moreover, what ability does Qing'er have to be able to have a relationship with such a powerful person? It is clear that Prince Yu residence had made enemies and Qing'er was just lucky to keep her life. We have already let her down and must not leave her alone." Ran Wanyun and old Shenforen had been mother-in-law and daughter-in-law for so many years, and was very clear about old Shenforen's temperament. Old Shenforen was extremely selfish in her bones, and would change the direction of the wind. Even if he had some feelings for Shen Qing, he would not hesitate to abandon Shen Qing when it was time to put his own safety first. Ran Wanyun sometimes felt that Shen Gui was such a heartless person, but it was only because old Shen Foran's blood flowed in his bones that his selfish temperament was exactly the same. After old Shen Foran heard Ran Wanyun's words, she became angrier and said, "Eldest daughter-in-law, your words are strange. How have we wronged Qing lass? It was I who forced her to have an affair with Prince Yu of the first rank. It was I who forced her to shamelessly bear a child? I didn't teach her any of these rules." Old Shen Foran was a female singer and a person who came out from the marketplace. Naturally, the words that she said were not pleasant to hear. Even if Ran Wanyun was shrewd to the bones, she was also angered by old Shen Foran's merciless words. She said, "Mother, how can you say that about Qing? She is your granddaughter." Chun Roqiu opened her mouth to persuade. Second saw, "Speak less. Mother is also worried about Qing'er," which made her angry. Everyone knows that among the 3D young ladies, mother likes Qing'er the most. Chapter 240. She was originally the young lady that she liked the most, but now she did not hesitate to abandon her. Old Shen Foran's selfish nature was really despicable. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan revealed a look of disdain but did not say a word and treated it as a show. Shen Yuan glanced at Chun Roqiu. His gaze was also very gloomy, which made Chun Roqiu's words pause as she was somewhat fearful. Shen Yuan walked over to Ran Wanyun's side and helped her up before looking at old Shen Foran. "Grandmother need not be anxious. The matter has not reached the worst stage. Currently, younger sister is only suspected and has not been convicted. His sister had nothing to do with this matter, and the truth would come to light after some time. I will investigate this matter seriously and won't let my sister be wrongly accused." When old Shen Foran heard it, her gaze eased up a little. Among her sons and grandsons, the one she liked the most was her youngest grandson, Shen Yuanbo, and the one she was most proud of was this extremely capable Shen Yuan at such a young age. Moreover, Shen Yuan had always been good at making her happy, so she immediately nodded her head and said, "If that's the case, then go and investigate properly. If Qing lass is really innocent, I naturally don't wish for her to be wrongly accused." After a pause, she looked at Ran Wanyun and sneered, "But I see that your mother is possessed. If her mind is not clear, then do not go out and stay in the residence. Do not find trouble for me." Ran Wanyun was angry and hateful as her face flushed red. She did not know when it started, but old Shen Foran's dissatisfaction with her had increased, and now she was wantonly humiliating her in front of all her children. Even Chun Roqiu looked at her with ridicule. It was only when Shen Yuan supported her back to Kai Yun Yuan did Ran Wanyun catch her breath. She pulled Shen Yuan's arm and said, "Donna, think of a way to save your younger sister. How would Qing have such a great ability? How could she be the murderer?" "Mother, don't worry." Shen Yuan comforted her. "Since younger sister was wrongly accused, there is no need to be afraid of people investigating. Now that she's being suspected, it's only because the real culprit hasn't come to light. Since that's the case, if we find the real culprit, sister's injustice will naturally be resolved." When Ren Wanyun heard this, it was as if she had found a life-saving straw and her eyes immediately lit up. She asked happily, "When will the murderer be found? How long will your sister be locked up for? When will you find the murderer?" Shen Yuan looked at Ren Wanyun. Ren Wanyun's complexion was very haggard, and it had been a long time since she put on makeup. Her skin looked old and dull and her hair was very disheveled. There was no trace of her previous meticulous and exquisite appearance. She had always been a person who was particular about her appearance and wealth. Now that she was so sloppy, it was as if she was a completely different person. And the cause of all this was because of a young girl who had been called an idiot in the past. Shen Yuan felt a headache coming on. He had always prided himself on his intelligence and did not expect that upon returning to the capital, he would be given such a big mess upon returning to the Fu. Ren Wanyun's position in the residence had plummeted. It was fine that Shen Qing was pregnant out of wedlock, but now she was involved in the massacre of Prince Yu residence. Without knowing why, Shen Yuan suddenly remembered the day of Shen Qing's marriage when he was talking to Shen Miao. At that time Shen Miao said, No one can say for sure about the matters of the world. Everyone has their own fortunes and misfortunes, and it is possible that there is no road ahead. Now there was really no road in front of Shunqing, and even if there was a road, the road would be extremely difficult. She was the only survivor in the entire Prince Yu residence, and at this point, Xin Yuan could clearly see that the culprit did not leave Shunqing's life because of soft-heartedness or sympathy. To leave her life, it was the talisman that hastened Shunqing's death. At the very least, there was a huge difference between being implicated in the massacre of a family and dying with the crime of murder in mind. The culprit clearly deliberately let Shunqing fall into such a difficult situation, but Shunqing was just a young lady. Who would be so ruthless to a young lady? Was it Shen Miao? How would Shen Miao order so many killers to kill the people of Prince Yu residence for her? It would be difficult to do it with that kind of manpower. Xin Yuan's gaze was heavy. No matter if the person behind the scenes was Shen Miao or not, he must investigate this matter to the end. Since that person was targeting Shunqing, it might not necessarily be targeting the second household of the Shen family. Even though Shunqing's future was difficult, it was not to the point where she was at a dead end. He must uncover the person behind the scenes and return it 1,000 times over. Shen Yuan thought like this, but he did not expect that, just like Shen Miao's words, no one could say for sure about the matters of the world. Everyone has their fortunes and misfortunes, and it was possible that there was no road ahead. On the second day, his path was sealed into a dead end. Chapter 241. With such a big matter happening in the Ding capital, the entire city was talking about the tragedy of Prince Yu's family being exterminated. The rumors were like a snowball rolling bigger and bigger, and the more it spread, the more outrageous it became. There were all kinds of guesses, and some even suspected that the one who exterminated the entire Prince Yu residence was the lover of the newly married Prince Yu's consort, who flew into a rage for a beauty and let the entire Prince Yu residence be buried with her. Such a rumor was much more alluring, as if there was suddenly a trace of charming color in the cruel truth. Such rumors could be found everywhere, and the person who heard them probably didn't think much of it. However, in the vast river of rumors, there was one that was extremely shocking. The meaning of this rumor was that the extermination of the entire Prince Yu residence in one night was actually the intention of the Shen family. As for why the general residence would do that, the water was too deep, and one would have to see the officials themselves to think about it. If one were to say that the previous rumors only brought ridicule to Shunqing and her family, then this conjecture with the color of conspiracy had really pushed the Shen residence to the front of everyone. Prince Yu residence of the first rank was exterminated, and not even a beast was left in the residence, but a bride that just married into the family was left behind. What capabilities did this bride have to make the other party spare her life, unless she had some relation with her? If it was the Shen family, then all of this naturally made sense. But why did the Shen family have to go against the Prince Yu residence? On the surface, perhaps it was because they were dissatisfied with the marriage, but if one were to probe deeper, now that there was a turbulent undercurrent in the court, who knew if the Shen family had been incited by others, or if it was to express something? These things were not seen by the common people, but the old foxes in the officialdom would not let it go. In a short period of time, the Shen family was placed in the teeth of the storm. Early in the morning, Bai Lu and Shuangjiang came over to invite Xin Miao to eat snacks. The Shen residents did not have the mood to take care of other matters, and even the 3 meals in the small kitchen were sloppy. Other than Rong Jingtang's side, most of the matters were dealt with by themselves, so Bai Lu and Shuangjiang simply went out to buy snacks and let Xin Miao eat some sweet soup to warm her body. After eating breakfast, Xin Miao also finished grooming and looked at her appearance before slightly frowning. She then said to Gu Yu, "Go and bring the fox skin scarf that eldest brother sent over." Hey, the girl remembered to wear that scarf. Gu Yu dug out the scarf from the box and wanted to help Shen Miao put it on, but was stopped by Shen Miao. "I will do it myself." That scarf was made from a fox skin that was snow white, and there was not a single strand of mixed fur. It was also hunted by Shan Qiu in the northwest mountain forest, and at the beginning he saw that the fur was precious, so he got the tailor to make an exquisite scarf for Shan Miao. It was just that Shen Miao did not like to wear it and was placed under the box. She did not know what happened today, but she suddenly thought of it, which made Gu Yu somewhat happy. After all, it was such a good-looking leather, but it was placed at the bottom of the box all day and did not see the light of day. It was a pity. Shun Miao wrapped the scarf around her neck, and when Guyu saw it, she exclaimed in admiration, "Young lady looks really good with this scarf around your neck. It makes you look even fairer. It also looks warm. It's so nice." Shun Miao's eyes hung down and her fingers gently brushed the soft fur, but she thought of the bruise on her neck in the mirror. That was the mark left by Xie Jingxing when he choked her throat yesterday. At that time this person was not lenient and she did not notice it yesterday, but today it was exceptionally obvious. Even though the collars of the clothes worn in the cold winter were high, but if one was not careful and was seen by others, one feared that Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan would not take it lying down. It was better to have less trouble than more trouble, and it was better to wrap it tighter. Putting down the bronze mirror in her hands, Shun Miao opened the door and walked out. Coincidentally, she saw Shan Qiu standing under the tree in the courtyard and giving instructions to the soldier beside him. Shan Qiu's guards were all from the army and were different from the ordinary guards, as they had a kind of brave and iron-blooded bearing. Seeing Shun Miao, Shan Qiu spoke to the soldier before turning around and smiled. "Younger sister." Chapter 242. What happened? Shun Miao asked. Normally in the early morning, Shan Qiu would always stand in the courtyard and practice his sword and spear. The best place in the western courtyard was this spacious courtyard in Shanqiu, and Shen Xian loved to spar in this courtyard. Occasionally when they were in the mood, Luo Shuiyan would also join in. These days Shen Miao was already used to seeing Shan Qiu's figure practicing martial arts when she opened the door. Today there was no movement, so naturally something happened. Shan Qiu laughed twice and said, "Nothing much. Why did younger sister come out so early? Not sleeping a little more?" Shun Miao did not even blink when he changed the topic. "It is because of eldest sister and the Shen family's matter." Shan Qiu quickly coughed and pulled Shun Miao into the room. After entering the room, he chased the servants out and closed the door before looking at Shan Miao. "Younger sister, do not say these words outside." "What exactly happened?" Shan Qiu scratched his head. "It is not a big matter. Just leave it to father, mother and me. Do not go out these days and do not bother about this matter." He spoke vaguely, most likely wanting to fool Shen Miao. But if even Shan Qiu could fool Shen Miao, then Shen Miao would not be able to continue living in the Shen family. She stared at Shan Qiu without blinking. "All right. Eldest brother, you do not need to hide from me. It is the matter of Prince Yu Residence's extermination. Others suspected eldest sister and now suspect the Shen family." Shan Qiu was surprised for a moment and looked at Shan Miao. Suddenly there was a sense of powerlessness in his heart. He increasingly felt that he could not have the feeling of being an elder brother in front of Shen Miao. Shen Miao knew everything. Previously when she was stupid, one was afraid that she would be bullied, but now that she was smart, one could not do anything. Seeing that Shan Qiu did not speak, Shan Miao continued, "Eldest brother is worried about this matter?" "Younger sister," Shan Qiu said seriously, "you are still young and do not understand the matters of the court. Even though this matter looks simple, the slandering person's ambition is not here. If one is not careful, the Shen family will be implicated." He looked at Shan Miao and hesitated for a moment before asking hesitantly, "Younger sister, do you know about the case of Prince Yu Residence?" As soon as the words left his mouth, he immediately answered himself, "I think younger sister doesn't know. Younger sister is an unmarried girl. How could I have such great ability?" Ever since Shan Miao told Shen Qiu about how the second household and Prince Yu schemed against her, Shen Qiu had not been able to swallow this anger. If it was not that Shen Miao did not allow Shen Qiu to tell her parents and also forced him not to act blindly without thinking, one feared that Shen Qiu would have long gone to take revenge for Shan Miao. From the beginning to the end, Shen Miao had explained to Shen Qiu that she had ways to handle everything. What happened after that was that the second branch seemed to be unlucky and had bad luck. If Shen Qing's pregnancy was discovered during the returning banquet and Shen Miao was the one who facilitated Shen Qing's marriage to Prince Yu Residence, Shen Qiu would already be very surprised. But this time the entire residence of Prince Yu was exterminated, and if Shen Miao had a part in it, Shen Qiu only felt a chill in his heart. One had to know that to make a residence of a prince disappear silently from this world, Even if Shen Xian were to take action, one feared that it would take a lot of effort. Shen Miao was a delicate young lady. How could it be possible? But the more he felt that it was impossible, the more Shan Qiu had an intuition that there was enmity between the residents of Prince Yu and Shan Miao. Now that it had fallen to this stage, what if Shen Miao added fuel to the fire? Shen Miao glanced at Shan Qiu and sighed. Eldest brother suspects that I did it? No. Younger sister, how would I suspect you? You are just a young lady. If you really have this kind of ability, others would laugh their teeth off if it was set out. Shan Qiu quickly retorted, fearing that he would annoy Shan Miao. Chapter 243. When Shen Miao saw his cautious look, Shen Miao sighed in her heart. She could not tell the truth to Shen Qiu. The first household of the Shen family were upright and kind and loyal people. If one knew that such a vicious thing was done by her hands, one's heart would definitely be very painful. She could only lie to Shen Qiu. Shen Miao gently smiled. I indeed do not have this kind of ability. Eldest brother need not doubt me. It is just that the matter that eldest brother is worried about, in fact one need not worry too much. Shen Qiu looked at Shan Miao. Unknowingly, when he faced Shen Miao, there was an additional meaning of inquiry in his conversation. He asked, why does younger sister think so? The people of the world are not fools. How can one be convicted based on a few rumors? If one were to be convicted, one would naturally take out 120,000 evidence. Moreover, what relationship does eldest sister have with our first household? Father and mother are not in the residence all year round, so no matter how dirty water is splashed, it would not reach us. Even if there were 100 chaos in the current situation, it would not be our turn to worry. Naturally, there would be smart and capable people to solve all these problems together. Smart and capable people. Shen Qiu was puzzled. Who is that? Before his voice landed, he heard Bai Lu's loud voice from outside. Second young master, why are you here? You see. Shen Miao turned back and a smile flashed in her eyes. A smart and capable person is here. Shen Qiu's eyes turned and in 3 steps he walked to the door and opened it. As expected, he saw Shen Yuan standing at the door. Shen Yuan had always paid attention to his appearance and most likely he was travel-worn after a busy night. He looked somewhat haggard. Compared to the pretense he had in the past few days, the way he looked at Shen Miao and sister was undisguised gloominess. He said, Fifth younger sister, I have something to speak to you alone. My younger sister has nothing to say to you. Shen Qiu blocked in front of Shen Miao, and deliberately emphasized the 3 words my younger sister. No harm eldest brother. Shen Miao said, coincidentally, I also have a few words to say to second older brother. Younger sister. Shen Qiu said anxiously and almost said, that thing is not a good person. Shen Miao patted Shen Qiu's arm. Do not worry. If you are not assured, then guard at the door. Then I'll guard the door, Shen Qiu quickly said. The actions of the brother and sister pair made Shen Yuan's face turn even more green. In the past, no matter how much Shen Qiu did not like him, he would always put on a friendly front. This time when he came back it was a tit for tat. Shen Yuan's gaze fell on Shen Miao. Many things would have been fine as long as they followed the established path, but they had deviated from the path to a point where there was no way to end it. It was all because of Shen Miao. She was the biggest variable in the Shen family. Fifth younger sister, follow me in. Shen Yuan looked coldly at Shan Qiu. Eldest brother, please guard the door. Finishing, he took the lead to step into the room. Under everyone's worried gaze, Shen Miao also walked in. The door was slowly closed and when Shen Miao turned back, she saw Shen Yuan's gloomy expression. You did it? His tone was very certain and did not even probe. Shen Miao gently smiled. What matter is second older brother talking about? The matter of the extermination of the entire prince of first-rank residents or the matter of rumors? Which of those were not done by you? Shen Yuan sneered. I have finally underestimated you. One fear that second older brother has overestimated me. Shen Miao did not care at all. I still do not have such great ability to escape unscathed after doing such a disaster. Oh. Shen Yuan looked her up and down before saying, You're not very happy now. Chapter 244. The mouth is on other people's body and I do not care what other people say. Since second older brother insists that it is so, I am too lazy to explain as you will not believe it. Could it be that second older brother came over to denounce me? Shen Yuan endured and endured. The young female in front of him had a light smile and her lips hooked up into a ridiculing smile. Her eyes were as clear as water and reflected him in a slightly embarrassed state. He was proud and conceited, and now that he was tricked by a girl, his heart was naturally not reconciled. However, since the matter had reached such a stage, he had indeed underestimated the enemy. Are you not afraid of implicating the Shen family by doing this? In this way, eldest Bo's family would not be able to gain any benefits, Shen Yuan said fiercely. Hearing that, Shen Miao seemed to have heard a funny joke as she looked at Shen Yuan with a smile for a moment until Shen Yuan could no longer endure his anger before she lightly said, I did not do anything. Moreover, second older brother's words are too strange. Even if this matter is related to the Shen family, what does it have to do with our first household? She lightly said, my father, mother and older brother are all in the northwestern region all year round. You cannot say that I, a young lady, can make the decision for the first household. Even if the Shen family is really implicated, second older brother, at least the first household can be pulled out of it. Shen Yuan sucked in a breath of cold air. It was not that he did not think of this later, but when he brought up these words, it was nothing more than seeing that Shen Miao did not understand the matters of the court. No matter how smart and cunning Shen Miao was, she would only be able to be tyrannical in the inner courtyard. But the court was the world of men and Shen Miao was in the Shen residence, so who would analyze the situation of the court? Shen Gui? Shen Wan? Don't make me laugh. But with Shen Miao's sarcastic words, it clearly showed that she understood the situation better than anyone else. So you already have a move. Shen Yuan's expression changed and he sneered. It seems that your first household is not prepared to take action? We never have the leisure to worry about other families' matters. Shen Miao looked at him unruffled. It is second Shu and third Shu that have to explain properly. But the one who is most worried should be second older brother. She shook her head and said with some regret, you just return to the Ding capital and then encounter such a thing. This is really blocking second older brother's future. She deliberately said it in a cadence. It was probably because she had been with Shen Qiu for a long time that she had learned how to infuriate people without batting an eyelid. This made Shen Yuan so angry that he clenched his fists tighter. Shen Miao suddenly turned her head and touched her soft fur and said with a smile, but seeing that everyone is surnamed Shen, I have an idea that can solve the urgent situation. I don't dare to use fifth younger sister's idea. Shen Yuan stared at her. If I'm not careful, I won't even know it when I lose my life. Second brother must be joking. I'm not that scary. I came up with this idea with all my sincerity. However, with second brother's intelligence, he must have thought of this long ago. Since the Shen family had been implicated, as long as the Shen family could extricate themselves from it, everything would be fine. Actually, second brother also knew that the rumors could not be true, but after a long time, it would inevitably cause suspicion in people's hearts. So at the moment when the rumors just started, it would be better to treat it as a rumor. But to make it become a rumor, one need to let eldest sister clarify it. Shen Miao looked out of the window and saw Shan Qiu hugging his spear nervously as he squatted under the tree, looking into the room from afar. She smiled faintly. I think that the most powerful clarification in this world is to use one's life as the price. You. Shen Yuan suddenly stretched out his fist but stopped at the top of Shen Miao's head. He stared at Shen Miao and said, at your age, to have such a heart of a snake and scorpion. Fifth younger sister, you are the first person that I have seen in my life. Chapter 245. Likewise. There was a flash of pride in Shen Miao's eyes as she asked, do you think that eldest sister will be willing to clarify for second older brother's future? She smiled gently. One think that she will be willing, after all you are blood related. After pausing, Shen Miao suddenly shook her head. Wrong. One think that eldest sister would also not be willing. Eldest sister is a person who treasures herself the most. Second older brother only need to lose his future, but eldest sister would have to pay with her life. Shen Miao, you will not be lucky every time. Shen Yuan gritted his teeth and his tone seemed to be itching to skin Shen Miao alive. He suddenly understood why Ren Wanyun would hate Shen Miao so crazily when she mentioned about her. It was because the other party was indeed a person that one hated to the bones. I do not know if I will be lucky every time. Shen Miao looked at him. But second older brother, there is no way out now. With a bang, Shen Yuan kicked the door open and left without even turning his head back. His action made Shan Qiu's heart tighten and he rushed into the room without a second word. Seeing that Shen Miao was safe and sound, he then felt relieved. He asked curiously, "What did you say to him? Why was he angered to that extent?" Oh, most likely because he felt remorseful seeing his younger sister suffering in prison, and was unable to do anything. Shen Miao picked up the cloak from the side without turning her head back. When Shan Qiu saw it, he asked, "Younger sister is going out? Eldest sister is in prison and as a sister one must go and take a look." Shen Miao smiled gently, "After all, we are siblings." With such a big movement in the Ding capital, it would be strange if the Fengxian pawnshop did not know about it at all. One feared that if the founder of Baishao Shen knew about it, he would come out from his coffin to lecture people. In the Linjiangxian pavilion, Hong Ling placed the exquisite pastries on the table and set the teacups before silently retreating. Ji Yushu picked up a piece of pastry and took a bite before spitting it all out. "What is this thing? It tastes terrible." Finishing, he looked at Xie Jingxing. "Third Xie older brother, just lend me your chef for a few days." Xie Jingxing gave him a concise scram word. Gao Yang said as he sipped his tea, "Now that the whole capital is talking about the prince's residence, you still have the mood to eat dessert? Ji Yushu, you are really admirable." "There is no need to admire me too much." Ji Yushu smartly straightened his collar. "I have always been so outstanding. However, what does the affairs of the prince's mansion have to do with me? Why can't I eat snacks?" "Don't forget, the premise for the Chun brothers to take action was the news that your Fengxian pawnshop spread out." Gao Yang reminded, "What assassin rebellion? The news that you created is not small." Ji Yushu exploded when he heard it. "The person who created the news is still Shan Miao. One did not see her not eating snacks or sitting restlessly. I heard that she got up early this morning and went to the prison to see Shan Qing. Look, this is what it means to face things calmly with a heart like colored glass. If I were Shan Qing, I would have directly died of anger." Xie Jingxing smiled and picked up a snack to eat. Most likely the taste was not to his liking as he slightly frowned and put down the remaining half and did not take another bite. "How can you compare with her?" Gao Yang said coldly. "One fear that the courage of the fifth Shen young lady is not afraid of anything that can pierce the heavens. One must know that to be able to stab our third Xie older brother's hairpin and still be able to retreat unscathed, this is the first one that I have met." "What?" Ji Yushu exclaimed and looked at Xie Jingxing. "Third older brother, you were actually stabbed?" Xie Jingxing glanced at Gao Yang. "Do you want to go back?" Gao Yang immediately sat upright. "Just now I was speaking nonsense." Chapter 246. But Ji Yushu apparently discovered a new interesting matter and kept asking Xie Jingxing, "How did she stab you? With a sword?" "Third older brother, you did not evade, so her actions must be very fast. Finally she escaped unscathed." "Heavens! Third older brother, you cannot beat her?" Xie Jingxing finally could not bear it any longer. "Shut up. Her skills are so good and her looks are also not bad. I suddenly feel that young lady Xiao Yao cannot be compared to her. Third older brother Xie, can you help me think of a way to please her? I feel that it is better to settle this kind of young lady at home." Ji Yushu continued to nag. "One more sentence and you and Gao Yang will go back together." Xie Jingxing said expressionlessly. Ji Yushu finally bitterly shut his mouth. Gao Yang waved his fan and diverted the topic. "But with such a big move, why do I feel that the matter of the Prince of First-Rank residence is not over yet?" "Not over yet," Ji Yushu said. "The people are all dead, why is it not over yet? But speaking of this, I also feel that it is a little strange. Why would young Lady Shen let people spread such rumors without rhyme or reason? Is she not afraid of implicating the entire Shen family? Others are rushing to draw a clear line of relations, so why would she still find trouble for herself?" Have you seen a fisherman who would not fish after catching a big fish? Xie Jingxing swept a glance at him and smiled with some interest. It was originally one ring after another. Her plans were never to end in the residence of the prince of first rank. At the other end in Kai Yun Yuan of the Shun residence, Shun Yuan dragged his heavy footsteps back to the room. When Ren Wanyun saw him, she pounced over and asked hopefully, "How is it?" Shun Yuan shook his head. "It is somewhat difficult. Yuan, you must save Qing." Ren Wanyun's tears suddenly flowed down. These days she had been washing her face with tears every day, and her eyes were so swollen that it was somewhat scary. She did not even tidy herself up, and there was a strange smell coming from her body. Xin Yuan quietly moved away a little, and was caught off guard by Ren Wanyun's hand. Ren Wanyun said, "She is your younger sister, you must save her. Qing'er is very pitiful. She is innocent and she must be very scared when she was caught. We are not by her side, so only you as an older brother can save her." As she spoke, her tears mixed with saliva sprayed onto Shun Yuan's body. Shun Yuan's heart was already vexed, and seeing Ren Wanyun's attitude, it deepened the frustration in his heart. He said, "I know." He turned around and was about to return to his room. Ren Wanyun became anxious when she saw this and pulled Shun Yuan. "Yuan, why did you return to the room? Shouldn't you be going to the yamen to make arrangements? If that doesn't work, then beg the emperor? You're so smart and know many people in court. I'm sure you'll be able to speak up for your sister. Do you need money? Mother will go get it for you." "Mother." Shen Yuan suppressed the irritation in his heart and said, "At the moment, I cannot help with the yamen. Do not mess around." "I am messing around?" Ren Wanyun was surprised for a moment before she screamed, "I am saving your younger sister. There was not a single good person in this manner. Your father has no conscience. He only knows how to fool around with that vixen all day long. How could he care about the life and death of us mother and daughter? Are you going to ignore your sister now? Are you going to learn from your father? I have endured hardships to raise you up, and this is how you repay me. Xin Yuan, your father has no conscience. You are a little heartless." The more Ren Wanyun spoke, the louder her voice became. Now she was a little crazy and could not withstand the stimulation. One did not know where did Shen Yuan's words touched her that she started to act like a lunatic. Not only scolding, Ren Wanyun even pushed Shen Yuan. She was scolding, and there was no trace of the dignified and wealthy foreign that she used to have. She looked like a crazy woman from a small family. Shen Yuan suddenly felt somewhat tired. Shen Miao's words reverberated in his ears. He originally had a great future, and now that he was back in the capital, it was the beginning of his meteoric rise. He would choose a wise ruler to assist and eventually become a famous prime minister of a generation and trample everyone under his feet. Everyone would look up to him. But now what was this? His mother had become a shrew. His father was a yes-man and could not be of much use. Even his younger sister, who could have added flowers to the brocade of his career, had become a prisoner. All of these had become his stumbling blocks. Although blood and flesh were important, wasn't his bright future also important? He had secretly become Fu Xiuyi's person for many years and took up posts outside just to make plans for his return to the capital. Who knew that such a thing would happen? What Xin Miao said was right. Rumors were rumors in the past and should not be taken seriously, but if it was spread too ferociously and was heard by the Tian family's ears and heart, no matter how much Fu Xiuyi valued him, he would not dare to touch him because of fear. Xin Miao had placed two roads in front of him. One was blood and the other was his future. However, from a certain point of view, he really had nowhere to go. Xin Yuan looked at Ren Wanyun and calmly said, "Even if mother does not care about me, could it be that she would not care about younger brother's life?" Chapter 247. Even if mother does not care about me, could it be that one would not care about younger brother's life? When the calm words sounded, Ren Wanyun's scolding suddenly stopped. She looked blankly at Shen Yuan. "What did you say?" "Now that the entire Shen residence is implicated, the first to bear the brunt is our second household. Younger sister's matter has many implications, and even if father and I lose our official positions, mother would not care, but if it implicates younger brother, could it be that mother would not care?" Xin Yuan said. Ran Wanyun looked at him and for a moment her expression was somewhat flustered. What does this have to do with Boer? Boer is still so young, how could he be involved in these matters? No one is more innocent than Boer. Mother, everyone is innocent in this matter. Shen Yuan sneered. Could it be that I am not innocent? Enduring it, he continued, Mother, when the rumors are getting more and more intense, if the Shen family were to go and provoke things at this time, one fear that the entire residence would suffer. He looked at Ran Wanyun and said in a deep voice, even if Mother has the thought of perishing together with others, could it be that younger brother would be thrown in for nothing? Ran Wanyun's body trembled and started to tremble uncontrollably. One had to know that she indeed harbored such thoughts. Even though she hated Shan Miao, but the coldness of the entire Shan residence, Shan Gui's heartlessness, old Shan Foreign's sway with the wind and the third household's cold eyes had already made Ran Wanyun bear a huge grievance against the Shan residence. She even thought that it did not matter even if the entire Shan residence was implicated because of Shen Qing. If she could drag the first household to die together, it would be considered as revenge. But Shen Yuan had pointed out one thing, and that was if the Shen residence really suffered a calamity, even Shen Yuanbo would not be able to avoid it. Since ancient times, the emperor loved the eldest son and the commoners loved the youngest. Shen Yuan was intelligent since young, so Ran Wanyun did not worry much about him, but it was Shen Yuanbo who was young and mischievous that Ran Wanyun doted on him. If Shen Yuanbo were to lose his life, she would not be willing to see it no matter what. Then, what should we do? Ran Wanyun looked at Shen Yuan and there was no trace of the craziness left, as if Shen Yuan was her life-saving straw and her backbone. Mother, one cannot be greedy. Shen Yuan looked at her with a cruel gaze. You can only protect one of younger sister and younger brother. In the prison near the Ding capital's Yamen, there were prison guards standing outside. In the case of the extermination of Prince Yu's household, Shen Qing was in a very awkward position. On the surface, she seemed to be a pitiful person. As soon as she married into the Wang Fu, her family encountered a massacre. Fortunately, she was lucky enough to keep her life. However, if one delved deeper into the case, there were many doubtful points. Perhaps it was related to Shen Qing. Even if it had nothing to do with her, there were all kinds of erotic conjectures and rumors about Shen Qing cursing her husband. It was enough to make her name the focus of everyone's discussion on the streets and alleys. From this point of view, it would have been better for them to have died cleanly in that case. Emperor Wen Hui's attitude towards the case of Prince Yu residence was also thought-provoking. He said that he wanted people to investigate immediately but threw the matter to the administrator of the capital and the Yamen, and did not even ask about it. With Emperor Wen Hui's brotherly affection towards Prince Yu of the first rank, it was not possible to let it go so easily. The Son of Heaven's mind had always been hard to guess, and the officials below were also unable to guess what Emperor Wen Hui wanted to do. So they could only put Shen Qing in prison to await trial. This was actually a little comical. The only woman who survived the massacre was unarmed, yet she was treated as the main culprit. The matters of the world were sometimes so strange. When Shen Miao came to the prison door, the head jailer was surprised for a moment when he saw her and went forward. Who is it? Chapter 248. My young lady is the fifth young lady of the general residence's Shen family. Jingzhi took a step forward and stuffed the sachet containing the silver anklets into the hands of the head jailer. One specially came over to take a look at eldest young lady. Shen Miao took out the token that Shan Qiu gave her from her sleeves and waved it in front of the head jailer. When that person saw it, he quickly bowed respectfully. So it is fifth Shen young lady. Shen Xian's name was well known in the Ding capital. Not to mention the head jailer, even the officials would have to give some face to her. I want to go and take a look at eldest sister. Trouble Darren to lead the way. Shen Miao said. That head jailer smiled. Originally these few days no one is allowed to visit, but since fifth Shen young lady has spoken, then follow this lowly one. Finishing, he gave a few instructions to the jailer outside. Jingzhi and Guyu stayed outside and brought Shen Miao in. Now Shen Qing's identity was very awkward, and no one knew if there would be a chance to get rid of her crimes in the future. But even if she really got rid of her crimes, it would be extremely difficult for Shen Qing to live with that kind of reputation. Actually, fifth young lady need not be too worried. The head jailer smiled. Even though eldest Shen young lady is still in prison, Once the matter comes to light, eldest Shen young lady would not be implicated. He thought that since Shan Miao came to visit Shan Qing, the two sisters should have a very close relationship. No matter what, if Shan Miao was comfortable, it would be considered as selling a favor to Shen Xine. Shen Miao nodded her head. Many thanks to Darren's guidance. When a stone staircase appeared in front, the head jailer stopped and said, "Eldest Shen young lady is imprisoned below. Fifth young lady, go down and talk to her. My subordinates and I will wait outside. Do not speak for too long." Shen Miao thanked him again, and after the head jailer and the few jailers deliberately avoided her, she then walked down the stairs. Walking down the long stairs, at the end was a prison cell. There was an iron fence surrounding it, and there was only a small fist-sized window in the cell. This was the place where major criminals were locked up. There was a row of torches on the stone wall, but the torches were swaying in the gloomy prison cell, making it look somewhat strange. The cell was covered with straw, and on top of it was a dirty quilt. The quilt was probably infested with lice, and some small black material could be vaguely seen. The person wrapped in the quilt was sitting on the straw with his head buried in his knees. It was unknown whether he was asleep or not. Shen Miao quietly looked for a long time before walking over and stretched out her hand to knock a few times on the iron fence. The man who buried his head in his knees jerked his head up, revealing a slightly frightened face. When he saw clearly that it was Shen Miao, his frightened expression turned into anger as he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Shen Miao, it's me." Shen Miao took a step back to avoid Shen Qing pouncing on her and scratching her. Her guess was right. The next moment, Shan Qing pounced on Shen Miao. Her hands reached over the iron fence in an attempt to catch Shen Miao, but she could only wave her arms in vain because of the fence. "Looks like you still haven't learned your lesson." Shen Miao laughed and looked at her calmly. "Don't waste your energy. It is useless." Shan Qing hatefully put down her hand and suddenly burst into laughter. "Shen Miao, are you here to demonstrate to me? Are you here to see how miserable I am? Let me tell you, there will be a day when you will be 100 times more miserable than me." "What a pity." Shen Miao looked at her pitifully. "Even if there is such a day, you will not be able to see it." Shen Qing was surprised for a moment, and a trace of fear suddenly appeared in her eyes. She had been locked up in this prison for a few days, and even she herself did not know what was going on. She had always been pampered and thought that the night in Wulong Temple with Prince Yu was the most painful moment in her life. She did not expect that the grievous news that followed was more and more frightening. Pregnancy, returning banquet, marriage, and the bloody massacre on the night of marriage. Now she was actually a prisoner. She resisted the uneasiness in her heart and stubbornly said, "Don't think of lying to me. This matter has nothing to do with me at all. Don't tell me that it will implicate me."